Jesse
I
starts.
was trying to think if there's anything else I should share before we go live, but I'll just not do that.
Unusual.
We're ready to go? Says it's going. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Jesse. Welcome to
Recording in progress.
oh, I hear echo. Maybe it's just me.
I think so.
But welcome. This is a meeting of the Budget Task Force for Manhattan Community Board 4, where we prioritize our district needs and make budget asks really across all city agencies. And by extended order of the governor, we are conducting this meeting by Zoom. All the line items requested in both capital and expense that we will be going over tonight have been reviewed in their respective committees. Jesse, you have your hand up, so I guess it's like a point of
information. It's by the order of the mayor at this point.
Oh, is it? By order of the, thank you.
We're working off of a mayor EO these days, no longer a state EO.
Okay, so by order of the mayor, we are doing this on Zoom. So like I said, we're breaking this down by capital and expense, and if history is anything, we'll start with capital. And like I said, all of these items were vetted through committee, their priorities as well, but this will be the final, I guess, run through before exec. This meeting is open to the public. So if anyone is in the waiting room or in the attendees room, they are welcome to speak, to raise your hand and speak on any of these items.
We do in fact have an attendee, Leslie.
Oh, great. Okay, wonderful. They will be able to speak if they want to, or they can just hear and listen to this wonderful scintillating conversation to come. Okay, so why don't we get right into it? Actually, you know what? Before we get into the line items, I had a chance to, and thank you everyone who made their edits on the community, on the statement of community district needs. I think some of you maybe still have to, which is fine. Some of you did, which is great. I massaged it a little bit to reflect, I guess, some of our goings on this past year. Our top three, as everyone knows, priorities is very similar to last year, with number one being public safety, number two being affordable housing and homelessness, and number three, quality of life / healthy sanitary public conditions. This is, I guess, twofold. This was reflected in a survey that Manhattan Community Board 4 sent out to everyone in our district. And that was the results of our survey, but it's also reflected in what our community board has seen and heard and discussed over the past year. So if anyone has any comments on the introduction to the statement of district needs, then we can talk about that right now. But that will also be massaged, guys. After this meeting, I think we'll have a clearer picture also. Once we lay out our lists, then we can also, it would coincide with our introductory statement. Lowell.
Just for the record, I want to clarify. I think you said, Leslie, that the survey went out to all of the residents of our district, which I don't believe is accurate. And since there's a recording and
you're right. Oh, it was open to all of the residents.
it was open to everyone, but it wasn't sent to everyone.
It didn't go to every single email. You're right.
Because I'm expecting someone to pop up and say, well, I never got it and got a chance to comment.
You are correct.
Okay.
It was open to everyone in our district.
Well,
Visitors, residents.
That gives a great opportunity, even though we only have one person that is attending, to put a plug in for signing up for the MCB4 listserv so that you are always in the know in what the community board is doing and advocating on behalf of the whole district.
Thank you, Dolores. One request I have from you guys, Jesse, you just said something. I think oh no, you're not on mute, but we couldn't hear you.
No, I just said I think we have some former chairs on this task force. I can tell.
I can't,
Wow.
I don't know. I don't
That
feel
was
that.
that was a dig, lol, Christine. Me.
Why? Just because I'm double as a lawyer during my day job and I'm a stickler for details.
No,
and
that's
I'm
good.
there.
That's, it's absolutely correct. Hi, Maria. We just started. Hi, Maria. We just started, so don't worry. We're just talking about the introductory statement. That's going to precede our list of statement of district needs. The one thing I will ask from you guys, and Christine, I think this doesn't apply to you because you already done it. Thank you very much. There is, right before we get into our statement of district needs, if you go down, we talk about our recently funded requests. So unfortunately, some people have not updated that. So if you can, the respective committee representatives can go in there into this document and update that.
Am I one of the people?
I think yes, everyone is one of the people, except for
Okay.
Christine.
What part of the document is this?
So if you go to the statement of district needs and budget requests, it's a Word document in Google, a Google Doc. The one that has all the census numbers, and then it goes the table of contents, and you keep going down. And it's an overview of the community district. Do you see that, Alan? At the very end of the introduction, I should say.
I believe it's page 15.
I think
Page
you're right,
15.
page 15.
I'll take a look. Okay, though.
It says recently funded requests, and those are just all the wins from, we'll just have to update that. A lot of them, as I think Christine reflected in her language, will be partial. So then you can massage that and the partial will take out. Dolores?
So just bringing up, Maria, probably will go into more depth, is in our Housing, Health and Human Services Committee meeting, we recognize that our top three, I believe, no, top two, and then the fourth one, all said funded, and we know there's still a great need. So one of the things I think that's going to be really helpful, and I don't know how we're going to analyze this, Sabrina, I think is looking through public data to determine if if these items are fully budgeted and it's just an issue of not being able to staff or hire or fulfill the needs because of all of the resource issues. That's one thing, but because our social services needs are still very great, we're trying to figure out how do we still keep them as top priorities, right? One, and then two, also, how do we articulate? We want to be thankful we got something, but if the need's still great, we don't want to just let that go. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something we probably should discuss across all the committees if there are situations like that.
Thank you, Dolores. I will summarize a little bit of what we have written, or edited, I should say, because like I said, a lot of the text, a lot of the narrative is very similar to last year. We're still injecting some COVID related effects here, so that is reflected in the language. We did add some language under our trends from the migrant crisis population that has now been housed, schooled in our district. So that is also reflected in the introduction. And then if I don't, not that you guys remember, but like I said, a lot of this text is the same. And then we just kind of massage it a little bit to bring it a little bit up to date. But I think all of you had a chance to look at it. And if not, if there ain't, just, you know what, shoot me an email, make an edit on the Google, and we can massage it more before it goes to exec. Definitely. Is everyone on it now? If everyone goes to, I think it's 13, page 13, where it says MCD4's priorities include. Jeffrey.
Just to flag, Leslie, the unfortunate fire we're under is that exec is Thursday. So any changes do need to be made in short order, unfortunately, just FYI.
Yeah, I've been editing this for the last week or two, so, it's pretty much, I think, ready to go. There might be some language we can discuss tonight, or maybe specifics to each committee if they want to change it. But thank you, Jeffrey. So if you see, these are the priorities, guys, that we have been talking about in committee, that we talked about at our last meeting, and that are carried over, but still apply from last year or previous years. So if you want to take a quick look at that, if you haven't already.
Leslie, I just need help because I think I'm still looking at the wrong document.
Sure. So in the Dropbox, there's something called if you go to, it's on the lower part of the Dropbox. It says FY 2023 MCB4 SDN. Do you see that document? Or it might not be in the lower anymore. For me, it was the lower part, but
If I click on FY24 folder on the lower end,
let me go
MC,
look. I'm sorry.
it's
Jesse, do you see it in
The
the
Google
Dropbox?
Doc is in the email.
Okay, so we're looking at district trends.
Yeah, so wait, I'm sorry. We're looking at a Google Doc, which is in the link. The link is in the email I sent to everybody.
oh,
So you need to go to the easiest way to do
I
that.
understand. Thank you. I've been in this document before. I think I made
Yeah,
some
you were actually, you were a very good editor of the doc.
okay.
It was
Wow.
It's
Thank you.
also in the Dropbox. It's just not what you want to be editing. You can't. It's not the Google Doc
Thank
is the
you.
one that can live edit.
I got it. I'm here.
All right.
great. And I think it's page 13.
Page 13.
Okay,
And the title says MCD4's priorities include.
right. Okay,
Okay.
cool.
So, as you see, it reflects our concerns and our asks about living in a safe environment, preserving affordable housing, maintaining neighborhood character, providing adequate trash recycling, composting pickup, and then it goes down the line. I mean, none of these are foreign to this committee or the discussion. I just wanted to show you guys just for your approval. Alan.
The only thing I see that relates to us is the schools, the building new elementary schools. But since we've lost probably about 100, and Kid and I had a discussion about this when we were doing the narrative that goes before the budget request, because that was always the top paragraph. So we changed that this year to reflect the fact that test results have shown the decrease in math and reading scores across the board. So I don't know. I think we would like to get something a little bit more pertinent to what the situation is today, as opposed to building new elementary and middle schools to come out overcrowded, because that doesn't seem to be the case at this point, and maybe going forward for a while. So there might be something more pertinent for this year going forward. So we'll get back to you on that.
That sounds good. If you want to edit that, that would be great, Alan. If you noticed, I added a point below it, which is providing the requisite staff, including bilingual support and facilities. So, which is a little more up to date, and I guess more of a priority ask. But if you want to edit those points, then that's absolutely fine to reflect more of the committee discussion. Dolores?
So just a question, Alan, I apologize, I haven't been to ACES meetings in a while, but has the committee had any presentations on the drop in math and reading scores, and actually put out some type of recommendation? I do recall that early in the pandemic, Leslie, you and Josephine had written about trying to get additional help for tutoring after school, et cetera. And I know that links very much into kids falling behind, but I don't recall seeing a letter from committee that talks specifically to those issues yet, unless I missed it. I just wanted to check.
No, this is actually something fairly new. There were recent reports, studies that were done, probably they just hit the media and the press. So we haven't gotten up to speed on that, but that's a good idea. We should have somebody come in and discuss those details, how it affected our district.
So just following up on that, just how does the task force feel about putting statements in that, I mean, obviously there's a news article, but it hasn't been something where we've articulated specifically for our district what exactly those needs are. We can say across the board, there's an education gap, but again, we haven't identified what are those solutions, et cetera. I mean, I think we can speak to a concern for the loss of continuity in education due to the disruption of COVID. That's something we have letters on record for, but I'm just concerned about us being responsive to the news cycle when we haven't had actual discussions in committee about it. Any thoughts on that?
That's a good
Well,
point.
I mean, I can't speak to about we haven't had the time, the committee hasn't had the moment to really respond to the most recent data that's come out, but we certainly from the very beginning, the ACES committee has had, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, Alan, I think 2 forums on what's going on with the schools during COVID and the impact and coming up with ideas and,
Yeah.
and things like that. We could go back to those letters for sure. And,
Yeah,
Um,
I think
certainly the committee has done their, early on, I will say that's not recent, not in the last, I would say year on that, well, less than a year, but early on, you guys, the committee definitely did a lot of legwork on.
That's right. That makes sense, that we would see the result of that from the early on disruption. So then that's consistent. So Alan, I wasn't trying to challenge it. It's just more of,
No, it's a good point. No, it's a good
about
point. Yeah.
whether or
I
not we've
think-
been on record, and we have.
Yeah, I think maybe rephrasing it in some way might be a better idea than how we structured it this time around. Okay. Good idea.
Does anyone else see anything on that list? And if you do, it doesn't have to be corrected right now at this very moment. We can, like I said, work on it in the next day or two. But those are the priorities. And if there's any glaring omissions that you see that your committees or just in general prioritized, that's not reflected on there, just we can fix that. And if you scroll down a little bit, where it says the overall most pressing issues, which is what we agreed upon or discussed at the last meeting of this budget task force. Number 1, public safety. Number 2, affordable housing, homelessness. And number 3, this is where Jesse and I have talked, and we can, when we talk about our 1, 2, 3 priorities, it can be in our language and what we see and what we have worked on. So quality of life / healthy and sanitary public conditions, which we believe is what was reflected in the survey and what we believe we have been hearing throughout the year and probably previous to that. But if anyone has any better language to reflect that, the quality of life, that is also welcome. Dolores?
I mean, a simple statement of sanitation and quality of life. And the reason why I put the sanitation first is not because that's the higher priority, but because it distinguishes all other issues that people think of quality of life. I mean, we had a quality of life committee, and that was usually handling complaints of noise, issues with rowdy bars, et cetera. It encompassed a lot of things, but I think people get the quality of life. But the sanitation is a very specific thing that I think people have reacted to, particularly in the last 2 years. So my vote is a very simple sanitation and quality of life concerns.
Okay.
But I don't know.
We try to do that with healthy and sanitary public conditions. But if you want to just put the word sanitation, that's fine with me. Jesse, can we do that? Though sanitation was its own.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we just have to decide. I think we can put whatever we want in the narrative and be as robust in that description. But I think we right now should decide whether we want it leans more towards the sanitation or leans more to quality of life, because you don't have a choice. It's a drop-down menu. So it's, I think if we think that really what most people are talking about is related to sanitation, then I think we should pick that, and then in our narrative about that, we can be more, explain more.
Dolores?
My thought really is that sanitation is something our elected officials have already picked up on, already trying to work on, and have a
Mhm.
game plan for actually doing something. Again, hoping what we get out of this document is actual fulfillment of the things that we ask for, articulating it in a way that actually matches what we know is we have the capability from elected officials to put some funds towards and to press agencies to do. That's the only reason why I think I vote for sanitation ahead. And I think, Maria, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I actually think quality of life should be ahead of it, but I think the quality of life issues encompass public safety and the homelessness issue. So I actually agree with what you're saying, and putting sanitation and quality of life issues, or conditions. I forgot how you framed it, but I agree with what you're saying.
But I think also, that's definitely in the narrative, but in the drop, like it's Jesse's, there's a
Oh.
drop down menu that has to be chosen. One or the other, unfortunately, though you would think
But
quality of life and sanitation is
I agree with what Dolores is saying ultimately.
sanitation. Right. Alan?
Yes.
Yeah, because quality of life could be anything to anybody, to different people. Sanitation is sanitation. People, relate to that directly. So I think sanitation is the upper choice.
So you think you guys think it benefits us to make that distinction, make that specific distinction when we make our asks?
I would think
Okay.
so.
Okay, I will, let me just put it, I'm just gonna. Great, all right. Sounds good. Anything else on that point? Again, there, I'm scrolling down the recently funded request. If you guys can please edit that, that would be great. Okay, and I will work on the next point, number 4, which is page 16, which is the top 3 pressing issues overall, which is reflected of our, just more detail of what we just talked about. Okay. I'm trying to scroll down here.
So for that section 4,
Yes,
should that reflect the 3 items that we just discussed?
correct.
Okay.
It's
And it should be in
directly,
the same order, like, crime and
Exactly.
safety is first, etc., and then traffic would drop off, right?
it's exactly in the exact same
Okay.
order. It's just more of a detailed description, more of a detail of,
So we need to
bullet
build up,
points.
somebody has to build up a sanitation paragraph here.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Is everyone okay then with the introduction to the statement of district needs here? Is everyone okay with that? And if you have time, or if you want to, you can definitely go into it and put some notes for me, and then we can edit the next day or 2. As Jeffrey said, day and a half, maybe. But okay, let me switch my thing. I guess we can go right into capital. Jesse, do you want to do the share screen, or are we?
I'm happy to share my screen as long as everybody, I'll see what it looks like and make sure it works for everybody.
Okay,
Yeah, I think also it's just helpful because I think some edits have already been made to the section that we just went over. So I don't. But
Everybody see
we'll
the
start.
Excel spreadsheet?
Yep.
Okay, so I did what I did last year, and I think maybe even the year before that. It's a constantly rotating process in which I try to figure out what works best for the group. So, but I think this worked well last year, which is I took all of the committees, number 1s, 2s, 3s. I took as many as you gave me. I put them all together. So all of the 1s are together, all of the 2s, all of the 3s in priority order. And so I have the master capital here, and then there's the master expense as the other tab. So we want to, as if everybody remembers, right, really what we're talking about is, capital. I think they like to limit capital up to like about 29, somewhere between 25 and 29. And then we can obviously add as many as we like, but that's really kind of what their focus is on. So really, historically, we've always tried to aim for the top 20 or so to be a pretty good a good showing of at least every committee's top priorities in some fashion, and we prioritize from there. And then sort of after 20, we know it's just going to kind of, we'll fill it in. Everybody gets an equal share after that. Expense is a little bit different. They let you go a little bit longer with expense, and but they don't have continuing support, so we kind of make our own continuing support. The continuing support for capital is at the bottom of the list, but just remember it's on a completely separate list in terms of what it gets looked at. So it doesn't matter really what priority continuing support is in. So I leave it to you, Leslie, as how you guys want to go down it. I will say a couple nice things already is that there's a lot of cohesion between a couple items between the two land use committees and the housing committee. They've tripled up on a few things. I think also ACES and WPE has doubled up on a couple very similar requests, which I think is always a good sign that we're all together on something, and also that it creates a little more flexibility in terms of how many more priorities we can get into that top 20.
Thank you, Jesse.
Leslie,
Yes,
may I
Chris.
say something? At a point of time, I'm going to have to withdraw and then come back. So I just want to give you a heads up that, I'm supposed to give a little speech somewhere, and I will be back right after I do it. Okay.
We will save all your trans items. We won't erase them.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see in a bit, Christine.
No, I'm still good now. At a point of time, I'm just going to disappear, and you know where I am.
I was
Okay,
going to say we might edit them, Christine.
yeah.
That's right. I trust you guys with my life.
So why don't we just start from the top and we can go down, because I think there are a lot of we did have some wins. There are a lot of the same requests. There are a few new requests by some of the committees. I know composting is going to be big. I know there's carryover of that. Jesse informed me today, and I guess Maria, you can, our one request that was always number one, I should say, our number one request was always the providing adequate capital subsidies for Harborview. And
Yeah,
that's
the RFP.
that's been removed as our number one. Can you just give us some insight on that, Maria?
I had the insight yesterday, and I believe it's because there was partial funding to it, or it said it was going to be funded. Can't remember, but I told Jesse. What the heck did I say to you? Let me just check really quickly.
You need to put it in continuing support then.
Yes. Yeah. It's
Okay.
going into continuing support. Thank you. That was all.
I'm struck by the fact that we said sanitation, safety, affordable housing, sanitation, and we don't have any big things there about that.
So Christine, that was what happened in HHS. We had our top requests were all about providing additional services, outreach for homeless issues, et cetera.
Okay.
And all of the responses were, this has been funded. And so this is the tricky part. We know this is still a need. The disconnect of taking them off and putting them completely in continued support is a problem. What we were hoping was to get some data. And again, Sabrina, who's in the committee and also on the budget task force, was going to take a look. There is a possibility it is fully funded and they just don't have the resources. Again, as many agencies are struggling to get people in positions that are.
But here we're talking about capital, right, Dolores?
Oh,
Yeah.
my bad. We are.
Yeah. That's what
Well,
I was.
I was actually though going to say the same, in a way, at the same. Sorry, everyone. Hi, it's Jessica. Sorry, I got stuck in the meeting and now I'm coming home. But a lot of these big issues require big solutions that are expense related, not capital related. So I know in the past we've had some sanitation requests like snow removal equipment and things like that, but I don't think what we're seeing is a capital issue. It's an expense issue, or is a result of an expense issue, not a capital issue. I think that's why we don't have.
No. I would say on sanitation, we have definitely a capital issue. They need to buy a lot of equipment to do to take care of the smaller stuff. For example, what we asked for, which was the transportation.
Can I just interject, going back to this RFP for Harborview? I need Jessica and Dolores to help me with this one, because the reason why we moved it to continued support, my understanding was, from what I recall from looking at the document that I had, it said that it was going to be funded, but this document says the funding for this request cannot be determined at this time. And so if that's the agency response, the final agency response, shouldn't this remain right where it is? And not being moved to continued support?
I agree, but do you have it? I mean, is there new information, Jesse?
No. So that's OMB. The agency HPD responded saying this will be accommodated. So, but when we followed up, if you remember, we followed up with HPD and asked them, what does that exactly mean? Because that was new, and that was a new positive response to that project. What that really, the answer when we dug further into that, their response was, NYCHA has this on hold. So I wasn't at the HHHS meeting, but my understanding from my conversation with Joe was that while technically the funding will always be coming through, the housing component of this project funding will always come from HPD. NYCHA really doesn't have, besides being the landowner, really doesn't have much to play in this. So we're taking this off and continuing to support it, but making other HHHS capital priorities the number one priority. And that being
I think that's up to this committee to decide whether or not there's an equivalent. If this item 1 on our overall list is moving to continuing support, whether or not an HHHS item stays at number 1. I don't think those are 1 for 1.
Jeffrey, so you're saying that first ask from last year is not equivalent to a first ask of like elevators, for example?
I guess it's like, this is what we always do, right? Like the list gets put in the shaker based on the priorities, the 1, 2, and 3, and then we siphon that through the committee priorities. So I don't know that this is a 1 for 1 at this point, based on sort of the rest of the process, if you will.
Yeah. So let's look at the number 2 from HHHS.
And I
number
just want to comment on something Christine mentioned and Jessica did. So for public safety, much of the public safety, or at least our asks last year, our top 3, 2 of them were NYPD related, and it was expense. There aren't many capital asks when it comes to safety or police, or NYPD or beat cops or better community relation programs. Those were more from what we're being told, or what we were told from NYPD and other agencies. That's a purely staffing manpower issue, which would be expense, Christine. So I think you're right. The public safety aspect might not be as accurately reflected on our capitals, but it is on our expense, unless there is a capital budget ask that would better illustrate what we deem as a priority.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jesse. Recently on one of the open streets, we were talking with the cops of NYPD of the 20th Street. And they were saying, well, look, I mean, we are only 3 and we are covering so much space. We need a new station in Hudson Yard where we could be based on. And so I think collectively, maybe next year, we should have a letter about that, which says, look, we have had letters about that, of saying we need more locations.
And you bring up another good point. With our Community Board 4, we don't have a public safety committee, or there's no natural committee where that would go over NYPD on a monthly basis. Yes. Or they're asked. So it's a little, I don't want to say tricky, but someone has to take that up, whether it's exec or another committee. Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, we're on record for that. I mean, ever since the Hudson Yards rezoning happened, we're on record for that. So I don't think listen, I'm not advising you because it's not something that came naturally out of any of the committees. But if you guys wanted to make that a priority, capital priority, to say that there needs to be a new precinct within the Hudson Yards area, based off of, we've historically fought for fire, safety, and EMS stations in the Hudson Yards area. We because of that, and health services. So you're on record for that. I will just say, just getting back to the list, because I don't want us to get us too far off.
Thank you.
Actually, all the work you did do. The second HHS priority, the two priority is an affordable housing request that I actually, which I'm kicking myself now, but I also believe Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use also prioritized as well, which is both the SARA program and the multifamily preservation loan program.
The number 2 capital, wasn't it the Harborview elevators?
No, Harborview was that number 1 that we just talked about moving down.
You made Harborview made elevators at Harborview number 1.
Oh, okay. I'm moving a little slow right now because I was gonna say, are we keeping the RFP for Harborview still right there? But I guess we're moving into continued support based on what Jesse shared. Okay.
So just back to the main point of the capital not reflecting those top priorities. Again, I think that HHS number 2, if we move that up, it does reflect one of those top 3. But I do think, Christine, you're right. We have articulated in many letters in the past that there are additional services needed to accommodate Hudson Yards coming online that included, as Jesse just said, fire, schools, and public safety. And perhaps that is using that language that the request has been in across all those services, but putting in there that, particularly because the concern is on public safety, the consideration of a specific police or safety building, right? Again, hospitals are using a model now where instead of very large spaces, they use small auxiliary spaces to handle non-surgery type things. Just because, and just in the same way that Lowell went on the street to get his surgery done, we can think about indicating that it's not specifically a precinct, which will get an immediate no, but talk about bringing
an auxiliary location,
a location, right? And so then that may,
I think that's
more imaginative.
I like that because I think that's something that talk to our concern. Not having enough resource, and then resource is also an issue of closeness. If everybody is on the east side, they can't come to us. So that's part of that. I like that, Dolores.
Jesse, you switched documents on us.
Yeah, what are you doing? You're doing your homework.
He's doing the notes.
Yeah. Well, it's where he keeps all the trash talk about us that he independently keeps notes on.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I did that. I don't know why I did that. I was looking at trying to pull up a couple other documents to give us reference to some other stuff, but I will focus on things that we have.
Are you guys
All right, so-
suggesting we make that a number 1 for capital?
Yeah.
I vote for that. I think, again, finding the language that's very specific, that we've already articulated and we have had in past budget requests, but stressing that this is a specific ask of the NYPD agency, but not being so prescriptive as to say we need a new precinct. Because again, I think that a new precinct request gets the same usual response, not able to fund at this time. Anyway, that's my proposal.
I'm second that.
Any other thoughts on that? I mean, guys, it's a big kind of move.
Yeah.
That we're putting that number 1, which is.
Yeah,
which
I
is
have to
okay,
say,
but I
I'm a
want more voices.
little concerned about how this is going to play out at exec and at full board. This well, it's a really good idea that we haven't heard before. My concern is that we haven't heard it before. And so we can't, I don't think we can have it on the list, especially that high up, from just a straight up process standpoint.
Well, we could, if we
And-
consider we can use the exact language we've used in previous budget requests, which was specifically for a precinct.
Yeah, I mean, we're on record for years for trying to say that the precinct should be matching the community district, right? So I think we're even changing from our perspective a little bit on that. Then now what we're saying is, you know what, we're sort of we're stepping away maybe from that as being the priority request with a capital NYPD request and making it a sort of recognizing it is what it is, and you're looking for this auxiliary place. I do agree with Dolores. The auxiliary idea is actually a pretty smart one compared to arguing about the districting of precincts, because it is just such a massive undertaking that I think I don't want to give up on it, but I also just recognize if we really want to, you know.
But so we don't have to put it in the number one, but maybe in the first three. I mean, you know, just so that it's reflective of everybody say we need safety, you know, and then I think.
So my proposal would be that, you know, Leslie, that's presented at exec, and that Jeffrey, that a discussion can ensue. And again, based off of our survey results, to the trend that we've seen in some of the responses that we have had to make to agencies on these issues. And then also pulling that language, and then ultimately exec can vote on where they think that fits, if at all. And that way, at least there is an additional discussion about it. Again, I'm not trying to add something brand new out of the blue.
Mhm.
What I'm doing is thinking about our previous requests, how we've requested it, and how we've actually had to make changes from year to year when we recognize that the
Yeah.
ask, the way it happened, is not going to move anywhere, and thinking about asking in a different way.
I'll just say one other thing about that is that last year in our expenses, we did make specific requests for specific programs that were not really under the precinct. They were, they're outside of the normal precinct models. The Midtown Business Initiative program that's still existing, the extra 8th Avenue corridor program, you know, they were semi-housed out of precincts, but they actually had separate commanders and things like that. And so I think we are somewhat on record for being, you know, supportive of such things. So I don't think it would be, I think there's some history there.
I was just going to add, I like Dolores, your suggestion of bringing it to exec for that. I mean, all of this is obviously for discussion, but we shouldn't forget that even at not the last board meeting, but the one before it, someone came and asked for more police accountability and feeling like that was not resolved. And that's something that we've heard a lot about over the last 2+ years. And I think the last budget, Jesse, those items you're reflecting on were very helpful because they had a different focus than the typical like NYPD mandate, which created a really good rationale for why they be included. So I just think I'm not saying we shouldn't include it. I just think we have to be very prepared and careful for people who feel like we should not be advocating for more resources to the NYPD.
Good point, Jessica. The political climate is making that type of ask difficult.
But should we
I
go
like
with the political climate, or should we go with what our residents?
Well, we have to also know with what actually is possible, as well as reflecting what the community is asking for. And again, I think what we're balancing is the issues of public safety that have been coming up in the last year, and even before that, and how we ask for that to be resolved. And again, I think that we have a lot of different ways to ask for support and resource, but Jessica's right to be mindful of how that may have a reaction.
Well, I would also just add that the default of safety has become the police, and I think that is an extraordinarily unfair burden for the police officer and department to carry. We have advocated in the past, if I'm not mistaken, for an increase in social workers and homeless outreach workers, folks who actually have training in how to deal with emotionally disturbed individuals, right? Like, just like I don't want our prisons to become mental health institutions, the police should not be the ones necessarily dealing always with, you know, the person with severe mental illness who happens to be on the street. So how can we, is there a way that we can meet the safety concerns, not by saying increase X for police, but there are programs that the city does utilize today for social workers being first responder, depending on the situation, right? And so I think this auxiliary, satellite, what have you, makes sense, but from a service standpoint, it doesn't have to be about increased police presence. It's let's refine and make smarter our like response agency.
So I think the path forward there is talking about tactical and strategic responses to public safety needs across across multiple disciplines. NYPD did have a specific unit. It's unfortunate when cuts were made. One of the first units that was cut was a specific unit that was trained to handle emotionally disturbed folks and homeless outreach. And so now that they no longer are engaged in that type of activity, they have less of that resource. So perhaps it's thinking about not asking for more police, but asking for the opportunity to be more tactical and responsive to public safety issues. And that would require additional resources, including a physical location in an area that does not have coverage at this time.
Just a point, because I was going over some of the crime numbers and talking to some of the precincts to this meeting. I would be wary of automatically saying it's a mental health issue. That's not the crime that's been happening in our neighborhood recently. It's more the Dwayne Reed, it's more the, you know, people fencing. It's not the crazy person or craziness or crazy, you know, mental, like.
What is fencing?
Fencing is when you steal goods and then you sell them. Like you sell them either it's
Okay,
like either
just
a
a
big
definition.
ring.
That's all. Thank
Yeah,
you.
like a big ring or for drugs or something. I know they're cracking down on big rings. But I just
Either way though, guys, these are expense suggestions. So I think we might have to, like, if we want to get to a place where we think we can recommend auxiliary stations, which we can then prioritize the diffusion of staff as opposed to the addition of staff. I think then this is about like appropriate deployment and logistics of the NYPD and not about more NYPD. But all these other, like, I don't even know if that's viable. I think that would be one way to get it in a capital budget. But these other suggestions are expense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the idea,
I like that idea.
I suggest let's go down the list of what we got. And we know that there's this idea of putting a capital NYPD facility of some type in there, and that could be brought up at exec, and unless there's a strong feeling to include it tonight, but that's an alternate, alternate idea for top priority.
Okay, let's I would hope maybe we can flesh it out tonight, not in total, but something, so we just don't go to exec and say, here, let's see what you guys think, that we can come to some sort of conclusion on this, but maybe that's asking a little much for such a big bite on that topic. So I guess with the HHS regular first request moving down to continued support, if we go down, we have the elevator upgrades, which I guess, Maria, tell me if I'm wrong, if that would be part of what you asked for the first request, right? That's going to continued support. I
No.
mean, the first request is a total RFP, right? So
Yes.
so would you want elevator upgrades if the other one, like how are you guys navigating that?
They're two
Well,
separate. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I know they're two separate things, but it's like we were doing with NYCHA working group. If we know there's going to be an overhaul, are we going to advocate for?
yeah, I hear what
I
you're
don't know.
saying.
I don't know. I'm asking HHS of what.
So ultimately, the committee voted that Harborview elevators in capital and expense would be moved to number one. But if I'm thinking, now that I'm thinking also about what I'm hearing you all say related to capital and thinking about what we noted as the top three priorities, which were public safety, affordable housing, and then sanitation and quality of life. I see that our number 3 in capital is the MP, LP, and SARA program. And then the next one was senior housing. And it makes me think that maybe those two are the ones that need to move up. This is not something we discussed at committee. I'll be transparent, but that's what's coming to my mind right now. And so I'm curious what Jessica and Dolores have to say about that.
I guess I think that I'm sort of channeling my inner Joe, but I think these
Perfect.
projects have been on our priority list for this project has been on our priority list for a very long time. And that for these residents living there, they can't wait 10 years for an RFP and construction and all of the other things that are gonna be required in order to realize this. So I'm a little bit shooting from the hip. I'm not also like an expert on this, but I think that like, as Long said, this is important, it's still important. And there also seemed to be some uncertainty about what the approval for the RFP even really means. So why would we shouldn't quite count that as a bird in the hand when we still have like a lot of uncertainty. And this is a concrete thing that affects some 1,000+ people.
I agree with Jessica. I mean, the points that Joe made in committee were very clear that this priority. And I think even though we have new information, the information isn't coming from NYCHA, who we made the request to. Again, I think that may be something that, Joe will be at exec. If there's any further clarity that helps. Maria, you're right. Our next two on the top of the list do fall within those buckets that are identified as top priorities for the for the district.
Right.
My thought is to keep this in as is, because that's how it was discussed in committee. And that new information is so overwhelmingly evident that it's going to happen. Joe can provide that additional detail in exec, and I say that we move down the list.
I will agree with Dolores and Jessica. I think the caveat is something to consider for the future is that I did speak to Maria Guzman today, and she said, Maria, but the elevators are not really our main priority. The main priority is the lobby doors and the intercom systems in both buildings that are not functioning and not working properly. If those could be replaced, that would be more of a priority than even the elevators. So I said, well, Jesse, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I'll just say that this is a cat and mouse game with NYCHA. NYCHA wants the RFP to pay for the capital improvements. So I think we should, in my opinion, I think I actually agree with Maria's original idea. But if we're saying affordable housing is the most important thing, we have the 3 projects that are listed. They're the Hartley House, senior housing, and then the SARA program and the multifamily dwelling program are affordable housing programs that are in the pipeline, projects that need funding, that we know where they're going to. And I think those should be moved up. And I think the Harborview Terrace elevators, whether we want to include the other things Maria Guzman has mentioned, which we have done in the past, by the way, we used to list those all the time, but it is for NYCHA, it is connected to the RFP. So I just think we're playing into their game, right? They're going to say, oh, we don't really know, we can't really fund this at this time until we get the RFP that funds it all. And we're going to say, no, we don't expect, because the way they're going to fund it is turn that RFP from affordable, 100% affordable housing into 70% market and 30% affordable. And that's how they're going to pay for all that's how they're saying they're going to pay for all the capital improvements. And we don't agree with that. Neither does Maria Guzman, by the way. So I just think taking it out of this, taking it off the top table for now, still making the elevators a priority, make it number 3 or 2 if you want, and make Hartley or the other one, I think to me expresses what we're hearing, which is affordable housing is top 3 priority.
So let me ask this. So just to move along, because we can, does everyone on this committee feel comfortable that HHS will have their choice of the number 1, or are we moving the number 1 to a different topic? That's the, you know what I mean? And obviously the auxiliary police will be brought up at exec.
Okay, in the fear of being a flip-flopper, the new information that Jesse just provided is logical and still fits within the plan. So I will retract on this recorded meeting that we leave it as is, and that we move up the other HHS priorities higher up, but we continue to add this on the list, but just not as high up. And that way we're still consistent with the district needs, as well as we have an opportunity to fund, if possible, some very needed housing projects.
And what is your committee suggesting we're moving up?
So
MPLP and Sarah and senior housing.
And Harborview. Excuse me, sorry, Hartley House, different H, Hartley House.
Yeah, that's what I meant when I said.
Right, but those are
senior
3.
housing. No, it's 2. MPLP and Sarah is
One
kept.
request.
Yes, and then the next request is senior housing at Hartley House.
Right, so you want number 1 now is the Sarah, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And number 2, if we can, I don't know.
So you guys want to take number 1 and 2?
Yes, I would like to take all 3, please. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
If no one's going to fight it now, this is where the blood gets shown on the floor. So if no one wants to bring it up, I'm making that change. Honestly.
Well, Christine,
I just want to pause for a moment and acknowledge that we're on items 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And it may be useful to
Yes,
actually
definitely.
move through the sheet, see what we can siphon off, and then come back and sort of maybe consider the 5.
Sure, so let's keep going down.
And just for clarity, the Harborview elevators and the renovations, like the roof, the boiler, et cetera, at Harborview cannot be all combined, correct? I'm sure I have asked this before.
It can and it cannot be. They break it down in different ways. That's why we separated out the Harborview elevators compared to all of the other things Maria used to ask for, right?
Okay.
And I think because there's a lower request for the other items. The other items are still there, that is brought down to a lower level. Yeah. So the way that the document asks it is that if you've got an elevator project is one thing. If you got other capital NYCHA requests, it's another.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so what we had, let's keep going down. We can hash out the HHS as the number 1 or 2. I'm guessing Christine will be okay with this, but I'll wait for her. Like the trans, which is number 2 or 3, the ADA compliant ramps would be lowered, I'm guessing, considering the reflection of our district needs. I would like to wait till she's on though, or if anyone else wants to comment on it, so she can give her
Leslie, I would agree, but for the fact that I actually think that's an accessibility, quality of life thing that is
So you think it's the number 2 overall need of our,
I mean, when we put it in the mix, I certainly think this should be, maybe it's not number 2, but I think it should be pretty high up, given the purpose of it.
So can we say in the top 10?
I would go
That's
top 5, but top 10 if we need to.
okay, let's keep going down. The Manhattan cruise ship terminal. Obviously, we all know that about the movement, or I shouldn't say lack of movement. There have been meetings and some promises, but lack of movement in general. Right, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I would say keep it. There's been no movement.
Yeah.
It's EDC.
Yeah. So this is Chelsea land use is below that. The roof repairs for the school, Jessica.
Yeah, we feel that, there's one, this is really important. We're at a very challenging moment with this property, meaning there's been demonstrated damage, and we're also going before LPC. We've had some meetings on this recently, and I haven't familiarized myself to know if there are other DSNY requests on here for capital that we want to prioritize, but and also this is incredibly important to our committee, I would say to Chelsea, to the community and beyond.
Okay, so that would be top 5, right? Or depending on AJ's. I just want to throw this out to the committee, and I understand that, but do you think we are sorely lacking in a sanitation ask as our top 5, if that is what we are listing in our narrative as a top 3 priority?
Well, I guess that's sort of my question, and I'm just getting settled back at home to open the doc, but do we have other, Christine mentioned like we need other sanitation equipment. Still not sure I would prioritize that over this request, given the momentum we have at this moment on this one in particular. But it would be helpful as I pull it up to look at what else is there to sanitation.
I believe transportation does have a sanitation capital. I'm just scrolling down.
Well, I know we have WPE and ACES are both have a combined one for organics.
Under capital?
Yeah, so that actually, Jesse, we want to talk to you about that. Our WPE committee asked, we wanted to do capital for the organic bins, thinking it would mirror what they're doing in Queens when they have the bins first, and then the quote unquote pilot or sub-pilot program as an expense. I wanted to, like, can
Jesse,
can
you just
divide
passed
it
it.
like
Stop.
that?
Jesse, stop. There was a request for equipment, WPE, or I'm sorry, ACES.
Yeah, so there you go, Trans 6.
Yeah,
Number
there
6.
are 4 DSNY requests.
Yeah, that's a DSNY request from Trans, is for for equipment for snow and things like that, salt spreaders and stuff.
There also is a request a little bit further down for equipment that's coming out of ACES.
I think we put that under continued though.
Oh, I'm
Isn't
sorry.
the biggest issue with DSNY right now, that we're having, in terms of the general population, is the frequency of pickups? Isn't this really an expense? Shouldn't that be prioritized on the expense side, not on the capital side?
That is, absolutely. Absolutely. But we want
And I know I'm getting way ahead of us here, but I would, if we don't have a sanitation request in the top 5 on the capital side, I'd be okay with that, but I'd want to make sure that the expense request is top 3. So to go along with what you were saying, Leslie,
right.
about, if sanitation issues are one of our biggest priorities, why aren't we asking for a sanitation issue? I would do that on the expense side and pump that up, because it is a little funny that we're not asking for anything on capital, but if we ask for it on expense, I think that justifies our position.
Well, we do have asks for capital for composting bins, for composting, which
I understand that, but that's not really, that's almost more an environmental ask than a cleanliness ask. And I think the sanitation issues that the district feels are more cleanliness than environmental.
ACES has a request for increase in residential trash pickup as an
Yeah,
expense item.
It's mostly expense. It's mostly, we're looking for staff. We're looking
Yeah.
for people power hours. Okay,
Okay,
back to the top. So we're okay with this.
I'm sorry, I muted myself. I didn't mean that. I apologize. So I think we're okay with 1 through 5. Does anyone have any
Well,
comments on keeping the Chelsea land use, the roof repair for West 17th in the top 5? Is that, I mean, do we want that over Wi-Fi for the schools? And
Mhm.
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not, or the Hell's Kitchen.
Jesse, can you remind everyone, and sorry, Leslie, if you want to use the raise hand function, I can.
No, go ahead, Jen.
But can you remind Jesse, there's typically there's the top 5, which is really important, or top 10, but also that each agency gets their own. And so as long as they're kind of close, to the top, then the precise, I mean, I'm not saying the precise order isn't important. I think it's important because it reflects our values, but just as it relates to an agency reviewing it, is there a big difference between, for example, Wi-Fi, where it falls on the list with regards to Wi-Fi and,
I think you make a good point. I mean, a lot of it is commentary, you're right, reflecting the values you said in commentary, but yes, as you know, I don't have to tell you, Jessica, because we did it last year, that each of these will go to their respective agencies and they won't see the others, and it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yes, there is truth to that, but I think also what you said is true, that when someone asks, what's this community board's top 5, that's a more of a commentary and a reflection of priorities. Correct. So anyone have any comment on that? Do we have, or do?
Yeah, I mean,
Alan, are you going to talk about, or anything about the
I'll
Wi-Fi?
take the number 6 slot.
I mean,
the
I
Wi-Fi.
honestly, I think that, again, Jessica's point is really important, that the agencies see only one, but this document does speak to how we prioritize. And while our number 1 from WPE has always been our number 1, we have articulated that the recent needs of our students are going to be reflected throughout the rest of this year, probably in ACES, as we try to tackle that problem. So I think that is something that moves up, that reflects a little bit better of what we're seeing. But again, it's
Jessica, do you mind that? Jess, do you mind that if we just flip flop the Wi-Fi for the schools?
don't tell my committee, or our dear friend Eric Washington, but I think that's okay.
And also, you know what, also, I think we're going to probably move, well, maybe not. Well, the ADA probably won't take the number 2 or 3 or the number 3 position. So everything will kind of move up a little bit, but as Jeffrey said, it would definitely be in the top 10.
I agree with Jeffrey, because it is, if we think about it, it is quality of life, and
100%.
yeah.
Okay, great. Jesse, is this all making sense a little bit?
Well, yeah, I think I mean, we can keep on going. I think that's fine. I think we do need to make, I mean, I know Christine's not here, so if we can confirm whether we want to just make the top 2, the 2 housing, that would sort of help the rest.
The rest
Yes.
of your list going forward.
Yeah.
I move that we have the top 2 be housing related.
I second that.
Any objections from the committee? Jessica, Alan, Jeffrey, anyone?
Nope.
By the way, Sabrina's now on. So we have some more folks on.
Oh, great. Sabrina Lowell, any
No,
objection to that?
I have no objection to that.
Okay,
So then that means that right now our top 3 are the 2 housing, and then the cruise ship and then Wi-Fi. And then after that, we kind of, we're going down the list.
Right, and
We've got,
I
we've
think
got nothing,
I think ADA has to be before Wi-Fi.
and we've got no real public safety issues in there.
well, I think, see, that's what's gonna, we just talked about, I think that's what's gonna push everything down. We're
Yep.
gonna talk about that in exec. There is a possible 1, 2, or 3 with
Right.
what was talked about the auxiliary.
Yeah. I think I'd put that in at number 3 and push everything else down 1, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
While I understand, Leslie, and I know the cruise ship issue is near and dear to your heart, it just doesn't seem to be of the same level of importance as housing or public safety to me.
no, absolutely. Yeah, we can, I wouldn't mind pushing, if the auxiliary thing did pass, it would either go 2 or 3. That would be absolutely fine.
Well, it'd go 3. No, it'd go 3, right? We're saying the first 2 are housing.
Well, if that's what everyone says, yeah, unless,
was
that's
voted
what I'm
on.
saying, everyone thinks that
That was
auxiliary should have been
voted on.
1.
The-
But,
Okay, so just to recap, right now, our vote is for the 2 housing issues to be near the top. There will be a discussion at exec about the idea of a longstanding ask for more services in the Hudson Yards area, but specifically thinking about something that can help with public safety issues. Again, that would be determined then. The question, I guess, right now is whether or not the cruise ship issue moves down slightly. And again, to Jeffrey's point, making sure that the transportation issue continues to be near the top, and then right after that would be Wi-Fi.
correct. And Dolores, I think it was, if the auxiliary thing passed through, the cruise ship would move down a peg.
Right, and I thought the question was still, we still had the question of whether it moves down even further, so that the transportation issue, the transportation issue is above it. Disregard.
I mean-
I'll be quiet.
Well,
We're good.
Yeah.
We're moving.
Well, no, I think the transportation issue was pushed down a little further. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
Well, I think my suggestion was actually going to be that the ADA curb cuts need to go before Wi-Fi.
Right. Yeah, I heard that from you as well, and I think that makes sense, considering that is a public safety, that is a quality of life issue.
It's an equity issue also.
Sounds good. Any objections to that? Somewhat motion by Jeffrey or suggestion? Great.
Second,
Good.
so are we saying, can we say Wi-Fi after ADA?
Yes,
That's
Yeah.
fair, right?
And then the Chelsea land use. Is that okay, Jess?
which
Okay.
Jess are you talking about? Jesse? or
Sorry,
Jessica?
Jess. I always call Jessica, Jess, and Jesse.
I think that's good.
can I ask Jesse DM a question, please? Jesse,
You may, Alan, go ahead.
thank you. So on these, do you want some new wording on some of these? Because we do have some of these from ACES in last year's request budget, but we want to finesse a little bit, jazzed up a little bit from last year.
Which are
So
you doing? Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi was number 5 last year. You can pull it right out. But I don't know if you want it jazzed up a little bit.
I mean, I literally pulled it from what Kit sent me today. So
Okay, so you don't have any words. So you need so you need wording tomorrow to put in a formal.
it's your request. So whatever you guys, how you guys.
Okay, no, I didn't know what you had in there because I just saw
You
the
know,
one line. Yeah.
I literally
Okay.
just took, it says expand funding. Literally, I think what Kit wrote was just like Wi-Fi.
Okay.
And so I
Okay.
said expand funding to upgrade Wi-Fi for all schools in Community District 4. If you guys want to make that a more robust explanation, I'll take whatever you got, but
Okay,
so
so
whatever you guys want to write.
we can just email it to you.
Yes, you can just email it to me.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
Okay, great. We got that big chunk out of the way.
Okay.
So then moving down, Oh, Sarah moved up Wi-Fi. Okay, so
Yeah.
now the next
Two
grouping,
now.
yeah, is another a trans of the complete installation of the islands. And then there are specific ones, the DeWitt Clinton Park, which, by the way, just as an update, I think we're kind of getting close on that. We have not promised, but half funding on that. So that actually is a nice little movement if we can push that over. By the way, coming from the WPE chair. Sorry about that commentary. And then the ACEs, again, Alan, that's the bathroom renovation.
Yeah,
And then trans with the West 41st and 10th Avenue station for the set. That's another big, the 7. So how do you guys feel about that little clumping there?
I think we're fine leaving these as is in this order. That's just my thought. Mainly because we've already moved up the key ones on housing.
Sounds good. Is everyone good with that? I don't see any, earth-shattering changes here.
I think it sounds good.
Great. So here, Jesse, you know what? I want to ask you this. So we have here the organics collection to provide a program, and then the bins, we have that under capital because it's like funding for a program. But should we look at it more of a lens of funding through staffing?
I'm sorry, say again.
We have composting, and Jeffrey, you might be able to add some insight on this. We have composting as funding for a program. So it's a capital, like a program, and bins, which would be capital, but should we look at it more as an expense item as staffing?
Yeah, it's an expense. I mean, it's a program. It's not, I mean, maybe the bins could be considered part of an
Program.
but the program itself is inherently.
Would be expense. So why don't we just take that off the board and we'll just flip it over to expense, and then that can be in the mix when we talk about that.
Was there ever an agency response to that?
Yes, there is. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm sure there was.
I think it
Because
was,
like, if you think about the fact that they've rolled out the organics program, curbside program in Queens,
yep, as a pilot, correct.
right? So I just don't want to lose sort of the momentum and like visibility on that, given like
I
that
agree.
happened. And to make sure that we are, if the agency responded in a particular way, how are we responding? How are we jockeying back with that in this way?
I mean, I think the idea would then be, it'd be up to Leslie and the other folks from WP to choose to make that a number one priority in expense.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So is that what you would like me to move this to capital? I mean, move this
To expense, yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking at I'm trying to get an answer for Jeffrey right away, and it's not right away. I'm scrolling down.
All right. So, but the rest of the number 2s we're keeping. I'm sorry, no, we're not. That's a number 3. We're keeping as is.
Yeah, we're just keeping the list as is, Jesse, as
Okay.
it went down.
Excuse me, Leslie,
Yes,
number 16 from last year, provide more frequent organics recycling
yes, here it
collection.
is. Thank you. I see it. You got, yep. So Jeffrey, this was the DSNY supports the restoration of this program. It due to the fiscal constraints, the funds is uncertain. So pretty much it was DSNY's like, yes, please push for this. We would love it. Unfortunately, the city's not giving us the budget for it. As what we've been hearing too offline, right? It kind of mirrors that. So, okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, so then we'll move to 3s.
Paper.
We have number 7 train station. We have the WP, which will move to expense. Hartley House will move to number 2 or 1. I think we should make that number 1, honestly. 1, 2, or 1 or 2.
Yeah, I
And
think
then you have
that's better.
security cameras. Now, Alan, you have to remind me, where there's a list, I know we listed 3, we got 2 out of the 3, so are we making a broad request across the entire district, basically?
Yeah, I can send you the ones that weren't on that list. I think it was just 33 and 111, I think. I mean, there were 2 that are in the scoping
Yeah.
stage.
Which is
Right.
the ones you just said, Alan, you're correct, 33 and 111.
111, okay.
I think we only had one other school we listed in that list. So
Yeah.
I think we went
the-
district-wide unless we were saying we just want them for one school.
Yeah, there might be another one on the list that came from the high school.
You'll let me know.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
You'll send me that. Okay.
Is everyone okay with this list as it stands, or excuse me, this order as it stands? Except for, like Jesse mentioned, the Hartley House popping up there.
Yeah,
Any
I
comment?
also agree with Jesse's comment, and I think I heard Maria also concur that Hartley should be number 1, and the Sarah and ML.
Yes, you did hear me correct.
Okay, great. Let's go to our number 4s, if we all agree on that. Wonderful. This is the 9th Avenue, 51st to 34th Street. I thought this was, already underway. This is pretty much almost. Is this, Jeffrey, do you know, I mean, I know Christine's not here, but this one is actually under construction, right?
Well, no, actually, this is you're talking the one Jesse has the mouse moving in right now, right?
Yeah.
This is
This is below
sort of
that.
the next segment, right? Because we were successful 51st to 57th.
57th, this is the next, gotcha. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Sure.
And then WPE's charging stations, that's a new one, and I talked to Christine about it and she's on board. We're gonna change the language to public. Oh, she did. Private, commercial and public space. HHH and S again for oh, this is what we talked about. This is where the roof repair. Did you guys decide on bundling that, Maria, you said, or not bundling?
Yeah.
No?
Can't bundle.
Not bundle.
Not, okay, so that stays there. Alan, this is your library, right?
Okay. Mhm.
At high school. The ferry service.
Well, that's moving into number 5. Let's just stick with number 4.
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
So that's it.
Are we all good with relatively these all being in the order they are?
Yes, I am.
Going once?
Okay,
Yes.
Yes.
All
Can you
right.
hear me?
We hear
Great.
you.
Awesome. Let's go to 5. Now we're cooking with gas. Is that what they say? The ferry, which, by the way, when there is a terminal, it's going to be called Jeffrey's Terminal. So, the ferry.
Queen of the Fairies.
only
You've
only
been
thing
waiting
helps-
for that. How
You
long have you
said
been
it.
waiting
You said it.
to throw that out?
only if Jeffrey
Okay.
helps fund.
We were
fund the
thinking
ferry
it,
course.
but you said it.
Right at the right. I wasn't thinking it. I thought it was actually quite original, but maybe. Okay, so ferry, the bathrooms. All of these guys have been on the list before, and if not, I'll flag it, like the electric stuff. I think ACES, this might be a new one, number 5, right, Alan?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so is everyone okay with that? Or do we, Jeffrey, any movement on ferries? Do we think it's dead in the water? No
I mean,
pun intended. It's
I
not as
don't
good
think
as
it's
your
actually,
word,
it's funny. I don't think it's dead in the water. I think it's useful because there is some changes that are happening. The route is actually pretty successful. The Long Island, the Staten Island Pier 79 route. So, I feel like we're pretty far down our list to whether or not we need to jockey anything. If this needs to drop down, that's okay. But I do think it's worthwhile to keep it there.
I
Okay.
think for 2 reasons that Jeffrey's right. One, a lot of the businesses that are still in Midtown, in particular, the Deutsche Bank Center, which is where I work, folks there have changed their commute from Wall Street to Midtown, and many of them want the ferry, don't want to take the bus. Also, with the crime that we've seen in public transportation, this may be an alternative people are looking for to get people back into the city and to commute. So I think that there may also be a different avenue of support for it that we haven't had before the pandemic.
Okay, great. And Jesse, I know you're gonna kill me. I'm gonna backtrack to 4 for 1 second. I know we're going in order of the committees, 1, 2, 3, 4. But as an example, do we think the ferry is, more important or more a priority, not more important, more of a priority than funding a new library at Business of Sports High School, or the renovation of bathrooms is that, a new library, Business of, or something like that as an example? Or do you just want to not get into those little tweaks and just kind of give every committee their due and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's up to you guys.
I say leave it in the order that we have. I think advocating for, libraries and bathrooms are something that probably resonates with the district, and that also have an opportunity for, if not picked up by the agency, sometimes to have some funding kicked in by an elected.
I agree.
Great. All right, let's go to the 6s. We have the purchase of light equipment to clear snow at the bus stops. Electric powered clearers. And then as you see, you go down, there's the Gutenberg sidewalks, new bleachers. Okay. So this is a new WPE ask. This is recycling, corner recycling bins. This isn't just, I'm just flagging it because it's new. It's we don't have corner recycling bins universally, and this is providing separation corner recycling bins. Obviously, if you ask me, I think it should be moved up for recycling, but I will leave it to the committee on, I just wanted to flag it because that's a new one. This is also new from ACES, funding to install a PS11 new sign on their outside of their school.
Look, can we just finish with 6s though, in terms of the 3 6s, unless you're trying
Mine
to.
says, oh, I'm sorry. You know
No,
what?
no,
It's
no,
not-
unless you're
you know
asking-
what? When I'm looking at it, it's cut off on my screen. I apologize.
It's fine. I think as long as, unless you are asking to see if you want the corner basket thing to be moved up, but that's fine.
I think we leave as is, and even addressing the 7 for your new item, Leslie. Recycling bins have posed a problem for PSN, for Department of Sanitation in terms of how to actually collect it. So until they actually have a solve for that and a design where collection's better, I'm okay with where it is.
I would say though that if I agree with that, but I think if it's kind of more, if we ask for it, it's kind of getting it on the radar that they need a better server. They don't have any universal service. Like not wait, you know what I mean? Not wait for them to come up with it and then ask for it, but the other way around.
Les?
I'm fine with it there, Alan.
Yeah, just a comment on this bleacher business. This project has been substantially funded already. There was a holdup in moving ahead with this when the pandemic struck. Everything went on hold. When they went back to the contractors to pick up where they left off, the pricing has changed, supply chain difficulties. So this is kind of like in a hazy sort of environment right now. We haven't pinned down exactly what is happening with it. This is not a new project. This is a project that's been going on for a while, as several other ones that we're trying to zero in on in the school. So this could change, or we can drop. This may not be necessary new budget item going forward.
So we can lower it, you're saying, Alan, you're okay?
Or do you
with
want to put in continuing support, Alan, or lower?
I think just put in continuing support, because no one seems to be coming up with any clear idea of what's going on. but eventually we will figure this out. So I would say drop it into continuing service for right now.
Done. Can I make a proposal as well that we can combine ACES number 8, which is the increasing funding for upgrades and expanding the truck fleet, with number 6?
Yes, I was trying to read the whole thing and I can't even see it in the Dropbox, but that makes sense. And plus it's more specific to where people have concerns about sanitation. You buy another vehicle, perhaps they can figure out how to do more with our trash.
Is
Great.
that all right to everybody?
Oh, sorry, Jessica, you had your hand up.
Thank you. But it was sort of a separate, if Jesse, you want to just confirm that that piece was okay with
Does
everyone?
anybody have a problem with combining the transportation and the ACES request for more fleet vehicles and things like that? Going once, going twice, going 3. All right, done.
Great. Jessica, go ahead.
Yeah, and forgive me because I wasn't seeing when Christine rejoined, and also for throwing potentially a wrench, but I do remember that we had that sidewalk survey that we did, and people talked about the importance of access on the sidewalk, and I felt like that was really an important education for me, which is why it sticks out. And just that we have these 2 requests that are really about navigating. Sorry, I think it was the 6 above. Sorry to go take us back, but I just want to make sure that everyone's, like, in light of that information, that everyone's comfortable with where these are. One is the snow removal, and the other was the WPE, where it says there are a number of trip hazards.
Anyone have a comment on those or any?
I don't feel like that's my agenda to advance. I just want to make sure that everyone's
Right.
comfortable.
But the WPE is about repairing the sidewalk in front of a park, right?
Correct, but it's not, it's in front of a park, but it's on a street. It's not in park area. Does that make sense? The Gutenberg playground?
Yeah, but park is responsible for that.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
So that's a very different kind of thing. I mean, I'm comfortable with that.
All right. And Christine, just to get you up to speed after your talk, everything is pretty much in the same, for the most part, in the same order. The only trans-related thing that was, I guess, moved a little bit was the, but staying, and I think was a top 6 or 7, was the ADA compliant ramps moved down a little bit. And then it's going to depend on what the executive committee talks about, the auxiliary, if that pops in there for the auxiliary police.
But you would move it down to where? The ADA?
I think it was Jesse, it was, what was it? Hold on.
Right now it's at 4, or
4.
it's the 4th. I think if
Okay, that's fine.
okay.
That's fine. No
Okay.
problem.
So I think that's it, because it looks like now, did I miss something, Jesse? I think now we're getting into continued support, right?
Hold on.
I mean, there's one or 2 WPEs requests that linger down there, but that's
I
fine.
think if we're comfortable with what we have down here, is for where it's at. It's, it's on the bottom half of the Capitol.
Yeah.
And if we're all comfortable with all of these being on the bottom half of the Capitol, then we're fine.
Guys, any comment on the bottom half of Capitol, as Jesse said, before we move on? And just in general, if anyone has any hesitations or strong feelings about something as we went through, or something went over too quickly, or there's maybe second thoughts.
I'm good.
Are we good? We can go to, we can go to expense. Okay, great, Jesse. I think that's good. Again, the one caveat will be the auxiliary police discussion at exec.
Just when we're saying, just because auxiliary police are actually an existing thing, we're not like, that's not what we're saying, an auxiliary facility.
Facility, and right,
Yeah,
not to have,
yeah,
a
there's
right,
Facility, not
police.
not to have
More
auxiliary police in
auxiliary
general,
police.
but yes.
And again, we're not stressing about the staff or increasing, we're talking about a location that where there's a gap
Yes,
in service. And so I think that, again, that's consistent with previous language. It's not advocating for more NYPD. It's
Right.
advocating for NYPD to be more efficient and actually service an area that doesn't have potentially appropriate service at the moment.
So to be clear, when I present this to exec, is everyone here comfortable with advocating for that to be in the, when I talk about it, that's what we have discussed here in an exec? Because what I don't want to happen is saying, this is what we thought about, what does everyone think? And then it's rehashing it.
No, I personally think it's a good idea. I think having a location which is closer to the action, if you don't have your police cars crossing the whole midtown all the time to try to get to the problem, it's going to improve improve the efficiency.
I have a
think-
question. Oh,
Mhm.
I was just gonna ask, what does closer to the action mean? Like, where
Say that.
are we talking about?
Say that.
I missed it. I'm sorry, I missed it where we were talking about having this.
Oh, so very briefly, what we talked about was the fact that the top 3 in our capital do not reflect those top 3 issues that we've identified from the survey and other meetings that we've had. And so the question was, where was there something that was related to public safety in capital?
Mhm.
And we've looked at we've talked about in previous capital requests, we've asked for our precincts to actually be aligned with the actual district instead of it being 4 separate precincts. And
Mhm.
that gave me the idea of saying, perhaps we ask it in a different way. And we think about having an additional location, and that isn't inconsistent with the ask of asking for fire safety and schools in the Hudson Yards area, as we recognize it would be coming online. And those requests have been in for more than 10 years. So-
No, where specifically is what I'm asking.
He
I
means
don't know if that
what's
can
the
even be
ranking?
answered.
What's the ranking of the?
No, sorry,
No?
let me.
Physically, where do we want to put it?
Yeah.
And
Where
again,
do we
to
want to
be
put it?
Excuse Dolores.
To be
You got
consistent, with previous requests that ask about additional services, it was in the Hudson Yards area.
Hudson Yards area.
And again,
that.
again, Maria, the idea there is not Hudson Yards has the most amount of crime. It's the fact that we don't have efficient services across those 4 different precincts. And if we can't get a resolution, which for 2 decades, we haven't got resolution on that one precinct for the district, perhaps by providing services across a broader range of the West Side, we end up solving some of the service issues that we've seen, which people have complained about response times.
Yeah, and to be clear, Maria, I don't think it's necessarily asking for extra police as we were talking about. It's more the efficiency of where they're actually based or located or.
I'm totally fine if we were asking for more. That's not what my concern was. I just was wondering what street. And then I did hear you all say Hudson Yards earlier, and I thought Hudson Yards, but why would we pick there? But I think what Dolores is saying makes sense to me about and Hudson Yards doesn't have their own security though, right?
They do.
No.
I heard Alan say yes.
So we
I heard
call
somebody else say
call
no.
Hudson Yards
They
the
have some
broad
security
area.
there, sure.
Related in their buildings have a security force. But again, what we're talking
Oh.
about is one, that entire area is coming online. If we weren't in a
Yeah.
pandemic, we'd have thousands of commuters
Yes.
coming in. We
Yeah, I
do
think what you're
have
saying is makes
tourists,
sense.
et cetera, and resources may be drawn away
Yeah.
from other parts of our district to service an area that does have other additional resources like private security, et cetera.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yes, I am on board too, Leslie.
Just a point
Thank
from
you.
what I understand, the 10th precinct now has less personnel than they had several years ago. So you
I
probably
think we're gonna get
do.
into that now, Alan, under the
Yeah,
expense.
but Alan, we're not tackling that now. We're at least.
I
we're
understand.
tack-
I'm just,
Right.
just bringing it up.
We're
It's-
tackling the issue that they are spread over an enormous space.
They are, and that's
And
what I'm
then when you
saying.
have
yeah.
2 or 3 people in one corner, we can't have them in the other.
Well,
So
that's
to
what I'm
answer
saying.
Leslie's specific question, my thought is again, the idea is around services and efficiency
Mhm.
and in where it sits on our requests. Again, I think that it will probably have debate within exec, but in the top 10, and I know that's a very long range, the consideration of that might be helpful instead of saying it has to be in the top 3. And again, mainly because of Jeffrey's point brought up that this specific ask has not been made at any particular committee. And to your point earlier, Leslie, we don't have a committee specifically for this. But again, around responding to the concerns and thinking about what we may actually be able to get. The idea is that this identifies as a top 10 priority, at least in my view. Jeffrey, what are your thoughts?
Thought I was on mute. I think that sounds fair. I still feel like there's some slicing to do in terms of like how that is played out on here and the language we use and stuff.
Leslie, happy
But
to take a stab at some language for us to circulate to the task force by tomorrow.
That would be great. And also for to present it to exec, because I think that's going to be the bigger discussion, obviously, the bigger discussion. Okay, that sounds good. I think we're set with capital, with that one caveat, but hopefully by the end of the week, we'll be done with capital. Okay, let's move on to the expense, which I think is going to be, we're going to inject a few other things just based on what our conversation has been on the top of our capital list, as far as the safety, the public safety, the cleanliness, and stuff that we, items that we said would be probably better suited under expense. So let's go.
Jesse, can I,
Go ahead.
Leslie, just 1 second. Jesse, can I ask a technical support question? Can you, if you double click right below the number, it'll make the cell the size of the largest text segment. Is exactly what I was going to ask there. And if we could increase the size or zoom in a little bit on it. There we go. And then just, for example, on like that one, the one below it, where you have the thing right now, if you scroll down a little bit and double click the on the left hand side where the number 4 is, right below the number 4, it'll match the cell size to the longest amount of information there. But that's just a
That's not-
never mind.
Oh, I love it. Excel tricks. Thank you.
I'm right.
So this
I'm
is-
sorry. I'm not an expert. So Jeffrey, what am I doing here?
No, it's okay. Don't worry. It's better now. I can at least
Don't
see.
worry
I was
about
just wanting to shrink the cells up so we could
No,
see
I
as many
totally
as possible. But I don't want to, we don't need to
That's
spend
it,
time on
that's
checkboxes.
it, you
did it.
Sorry.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Thank you. So this is number 1. Where's this is the expense. Oh, okay. So this is not last year's. This is
This year.
This is the new merge document, right?
This is all of the expense number 1s.
right. But remember, you and I talked about the, okay, so let me just backtrack a little. Last year, number 1 was Expand Street Outreach, right?
Right.
Which
Again, I'm not taking last year's. This is all of the committees.
I understand.
Okay, Leslie, I'll explain. The top
No.
issues from HHH and S, which were the number 1s last year, that was the question I asked at the beginning of the meeting.
I understand, Dolores, just hold on 1 second. But what the number, I get that. Number 2 and number 3 were what we talked about before, was number 2 last year.
On an operational basis, Alon, I often come in from New Jersey.
The number 2 and number 3 last year were, number 2 was other NYPD staff resources request, which is the foot patrols and the police initiatives. Number 3 was increased resources for crime prevention programs and community building through NYPD. So those should still be, that's what I'm saying, those should still be at the top of this list, reflecting our consistent, I guess, consistent view. But if not, if that's, I thought what we were talking about, but if people want to push that down from last year, they were both, unfortunately, both were not funded. One because lack of funding, the other further study, which is pretty much lack of funding. So that was my only question on, it had anything to do with necessarily the order of the committees.
So the request for the 2 programs that are existing, the Midtown Business and the 8th Avenue Corridor programs, they still exist. There's 8th Avenue has been reduced significantly. Dolores probably knows more about it than I do. I know the business one does still exist. I think it's somewhere in the 60 to 70 range of officers. So they're still happening. Whether we think we couched the need for more, the feeling of needing more presence by NYPD around those programs. I guess the question is whether we want to continue doing that. One, and 2, if we want to make them the number 1 or 2 priorities. So I didn't put them in there because no committee raised them as a number 1. No committee raised them. So, but I did put an asterisk at the bottom of the number 1s to say that we did do that last year. So we should have that conversation.
Can we scroll to those so that we all can take a look at
Yeah,
that?
I didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't put the language in there. I can pull. I can.
Okay, never mind.
Moment, if you can give me a moment.
I'll see if it's on the one that you sent us originally. The
I-
one from last year. That's
If
right.
you go to the response or any of it, the language is there, any of the ones, Dolores, does that help?
Yeah. Mhm.
So if everyone has a chance to go to the language or,
But I'd like, irrespective of the language, I'd like to raise the issue that the way they have currently put that out with the truck and sometimes nobody in the truck is really kind of a very unnecessary and inadequate solution. I would rather have officers walking up and down on 8th Avenue on those blocks which are an issue, rather than having an enormous truck which is empty in the middle of a pedestrian space. And people have made that comment to me as well. And I think having them to do it in a different way would be really helpful.
So the language in the general crime section, we did make sure to include the same language from last year of the request for additional foot patrols. And that was reiterated in that in the opening section that speaks to the top priorities. I made sure that was also articulated.
But here, I wouldn't want us to say we really need this. And for them, that the translation is, okay, I'm going to put more trucks, because that's not what we want.
so Christine, if you're looking at the language,
I don't see the language. Is it on
I
the
know
screen?
it's on,
I can give me 1 second. I need to stop sharing.
Yeah, could you bring it up for 1 second? I don't have it in front of me. I don't have access to it.
Tell me if you see this.
we see it, yep, Jesse, that's it, that's exactly it.
So we
So
said,
see the second one, Christine,
Yeah,
and where it says, it's more, we're talking about the geographic boundary of the crime reduction program, and then if you see the second one, it says, relating to that initiative is the conducting foot patrols, engaging with local business owners and community stakeholders, which we specifically put last year
mm,
for the actual, cops get out of your cars. and get on the sidewalks and on the beat.
So how do we enforce that and say, I think I would say here that the funding, I wouldn't say increase, and I would say, modify the way they are doing it by doing more foot patrol.
So I
Yeah.
can put some language for that, Christine. I do know that in the northern part of the district, Midtown North, they received a lot of recruits. So the new folks, and they're putting them out of the cars and onto the
Right.
street. So
Right.
again, I think it's mainly because we have different precincts that are, getting different resources, that's not uniform. But what I could do is try to add some language for this to, again, not advocate for more.
We should say,
specifically.
instead of increased funding, we should be saying redirect funding to expand, foot patrols and reduce not the footprint, but reduce the conflicts between the pedestrian, whatever. It's ridiculous.
Okay, so let me add some language on that. But again, to Leslie's point, I guess this was not on the list at all. To Jesse's point, no committee raised it because we don't have a committee that focuses on it. So where does this go? Where do these go that are related to NYPD?
I think I think that request should go to the top because people are talking about safety, and the situation, for example, on 8th Avenue is still very iffy, but it just needs to be done differently, I would put, if everybody tells us we don't feel safe, this would be, to me, something that could be pretty high up.
I agree with Christine. I do think they belong here still. And I do think they belong high up. Again, consistent with the concerns articulated by the community.
So the question.
I would
also-
like to,
Go ahead, Jeffrey, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I want to make sure that the language here, because I do also think this is where we fit in, it's not just about sort of cops on the beat, it's about who's responding to a call for help, right? It's not necessarily the cop that's most appropriate to respond.
Well,
So is this
we're
where
not
that
talking. We're not
language is
talking.
finessed in there?
We're
Yeah,
not
I think the
talking
tough
about
thing,
that, though.
Jeffrey, is that, again, a 311 call when it sounds like an emergency is directed to 911, and that's going to go to fire or police. And until we have other agencies that have a mechanism.
Yes, no, I agree with you on that front, Dolores. I guess it's the divisions in NYPD that where, the social worker was the first responder when it was a emotionally disturbed person kind of thing, right? Like whatever the mechanism is, but are we
Yeah, and I think-
finessing that in here, or
Yeah.
is that another app?
No, I think we can, again, the ask is other NYPD staff resources requests, again, building on the fact that we have these two programs in place, stressing that we need the visibility, but also to ensure that those resources are going to the appropriate divisions within NYPD to respond to the trends of issues in our area. And I think that may be helpful.
And Dolores, my point on that is that I think they are putting those trucks in the middle just to pacify the neighborhood and the residents and the stores, saying, okay, we are here, but in fact they are not here. They are not doing it. So
I think Christine, it's the same as if you're driving on a highway, they put a empty highway patrol car out there and you hope that people slow down.
Right. But that's pretty invasive, right? This is like in the middle of the sidewalk.
So let's deal with that out of the budget and start talking a little bit to those precincts about it. But I do think that, Jeffrey, your comment, it's important to think about providing the service that we need from this agency. And
Dolores, I have the name of the NYPD division. It's long, but I have it if you want me to shoot that to you so you can plop it right in.
Are we going to
Or
put that
Leslie,
though
or
with this ask though, or that should be, I think if this is a specific ask for foot patrol. And it's more, and it's more the relationship. And we crafted that language very specifically last year, if I remember correctly, to have people understand it was more not necessarily more cops. It was, we wanted beat cops because we thought that relationship would further deter crime, but also have a positive impact on neighborhood relations. I think if we talk about mental health, I don't think they're one and the same. I think they're two very, very different asks.
I agree, Leslie, but I think there's a path forward to talking about building upon these two programs that we need to, one, see more visibility and ensure that the resources that are responding within these two programs are resources that actually can solve the problem. Again, I think focusing on, even from the mayor's language, focusing on root cause of problems and stressing that in this request, because again, the request is for resources. The request is not about, it's staff resources. And I think that we can tool this to include foot patrols in addition to ensuring.
Okay, I just want to, if everyone's comfortable with that, if not just, if everyone is comfortable with that, that's the way we can go.
Yeah, I personally am. I think we are in a phase which is not where we were 2 years ago. We are not talking about the cops which were attacking the Black Lives Matter anymore. And we have a lot of people which are nervous because there are safety issues and we should be able as board to talk about those things without being concerned about what we're trying to say politically. And that means that, we need more safety, and we need to do it the right way. Okay. And we need to deploy properly, and we need to have a good relationship with our precinct in order to get that. So I think this is where we are compared to where we were, 2 years ago. At least that's where I am.
Does anyone else have any more comments on that? And I want to also not quote unquote bundle, but at least connect the request right below it, because I think we did that very purposefully last year. I'm not saying we have to have that at all. I know last year was a little bit of a different, as Christine mentioned, atmosphere. But if you guys think that number three should be, tethered in some way or eliminated,
I guess I go back to Jessica's comment about request for accountability. And it's not like we have an ask in here for CCRB or any of the other programs that are meant to provide transparency and accountability. And so I think, while I absolutely agree with Christine, we're in a very different place in the community with the police. Headline today about a very unfortunate incident of a cop claiming, nothing's going to ever happen to him. Rightly, that cop was fired. So I guess there's a kind of a balance I think we need to still think through here.
Understood. My gut is telling me that number 2 speaks more to our concerns. And again, crafting that for a more nuanced request. Number 3 may not be as critical at this time. Again, because we've already changed within 2 years. That's just my gut. That it's not about bundling. That
I agree with that, Dolores.
So is this 1-2, or what is the committee's decision?
What? Oh, street outreach. I think
No, that's gone.
We should
That's
merge
not there
1 and
anymore.
2. We should merge 1 and 2 and not, and not talk about increased funding, right?
Well, number 1 is to DHS, and they've already funded it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, this is just that this is not our current one. Jesse just put that up just so you could see the language from last year.
Okay.
That's not our current number 1 expense ask.
So now we need to go back to the other thing, right?
Yep. I do think that the number 2 from last year, what we just talked about, NYPD, again, I'll send around language and we'll see how we all feel about it by tomorrow. And I do think it belongs in the top 5.
I agree with that.
So I'm gonna jump off of this screen and go back to our regular expense screen. I'll just say, in my opinion, I think you can take a lot of the language or the purpose of number 3 and include it into the second request, and whatever Dolores magically puts together.
Magic, I don't know.
Yeah, I think can be done easily, and I think there really isn't a separate number 3. I think had best of intentions, but there's not really a separate funding stream for that particular thing. It's just a directive. It's a policy.
So guys, not to be harsh, but can we just cut that all together and
Yes.
then put?
Number 3, yes.
Yes, okay, good, done.
I'm
So,
stopping sharing and restarting.
thanks,
There
Jeff.
we all are.
I was on a call. I'm sorry about that. Number 1, did we say the street outreach? It was already funded? And I
Yeah,
know
that was just last
Sabrina's
year's,
here.
that was just last year's list. Jesse just put it up to look at the language of the 2 NYPD asks. That's all. It's not related to our ask this year.
Did I miss Sabrina speaking at all?
I guess I want to.
No. We're jumping all around. Let's just wait 1 second, Maria. We're talking.
Okay, I'll wait.
We were talking really about was the second and third request from last year, which was NYPD related. We agreed that we're going to keep an NYPD staffing related request as a high priority, and now we're shifting back. I think your question really is about whether your HHHS's first priority, which was still the support of funding homeless outreach, was funded or not. And the response the agency gave us from last year to this year is yes, it's been funded. I can't speak to what Sabrina has, but I'm just saying that's what the response was from the agency.
Well, the last thing Sabrina mentioned is that she did a little bit of research and it was very
Clarifying.
vague. So yes, if you could.
So I went into the records, public records of OMB, and honestly, it's very, very vague. What I found, it's not descriptive of how many people are actually on the outreach part of it and in our district, and it's not conclusive. So I would argue that since we don't have much information on it, it could be through the 4 boroughs. I'm sorry, 5 boroughs. Sorry, my brain is crashing right now. Sorry. And it's just I just think that since this was such a priority in our community, that I wouldn't take it off completely, because we don't know. It's very vague, the language. Yes, it's been funded, but if we as a community would want to prioritize this item, we should keep it there, even though OMB is saying that it's funded, because we just don't know enough if what is being funded, it really is covered the high need that we have. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, Sabrina, and I think you're 100% right. And this is what I brought up in committee. My concern is that this is still a need. It's still very highly visible, our issues with street homeless, as well as other issues around homeless shelters that are in the community. And even if it was funded, the perception, again, not understanding how those resources are being deployed, is that we still have a need. And I don't know if there's any precedent in budget requests where we've had a response of it has been funded, to just note that despite a response of having been funded, the need is still there, and the need is still great.
We've done that before.
But also, Dolores and everyone, I think if they say it's funded, but the result is not satisfactory, there is no reason not to ask for it again and say, hey, I don't know what you did with the money, but it didn't come our way, okay? Or it came our way and we don't know what you're doing with it. So, and third, don't we have more needs because we have more, homeless sites, etc., and therefore the need has grown.
Christine, that's what we don't know. We don't know how specific it is, this funding precisely to our community.
We're all already
no. We're beyond that.
Can we just say, can I make a proposal? We make the NYPD request staffing number 1. You make number 2 the housing, health and human services request for additional outreach workers, homeless outreach workers number 2. we'll update the language. So we're recognizing that they're saying it's funded, but we're saying that we still have a problem. There's still clearly a need out there for it. This is the whole purpose of the document. And Dolores will get us the language for the NYPD. And if we're comfortable with that, then we can move on to the 3 and
Great.
5.
Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
I hate to throw a wrench, but I'm wondering if we need to put the homeless services concerns above NYPD. Anyone, any thoughts?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think that's a wrench, Dolores. I think that's straightforward.
It's a good idea.
Yeah,
All right, so
Yeah.
Homeless outreach is number 1.
Hmm.
Everybody can see my screen at this point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's moving
Yes.
up and down.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so now
Okay, so let's
that's the number ones.
let's keep moving. Let's move. So 1, 2. Now, as we talked about in our capital discussion, we wanted our expenses to reflect our top 3 priorities, right?
So we should have a DSNY. thing.
Right. That's what I was just, yes, exactly. Or some sort of
Right.
trash, it should be top 3 should be reflected. And I think this is a really good opportunity to do that. So we have 1 and 2 already
We're
taken
on-
care of.
Where are the DSNY stuff?
Alan, do we have, I think it was,
Increase residential trash pickup in what could be considered problematic areas.
This one, yes.
And I'm going to voice, I'm going to voice a concern about this one.
Right.
Okay.
Drop the problem areas.
You have, yeah, well, in my opinion, and people who are on ACEs, I reported out on this last night, is that the in terms of trash, one thing the local superintendent did say that they could use was still an additional basket pickup, even though we're back to pre-pandemic levels.
Mhm.
And so that is lower down on the list,
Mhm.
just because that was the way the prior ACEs did the prioritization. And I will say that is an actual, I think, a get. He's gotten that's funded before. It gets taken away, it gets added back. Like we can get that. I will say that the pickup in the problem areas one that's subjective. And that's unfortunately just not how DSNY works. They can't, they'll definitely go out and solve a problem that's happening right now, but it's they're not going to give a certain street 4-day pickup and another street 3-day pickup. Then they're choosing one over the other, the haves and have-nots. And so I'll just say that's not this, it's a much more complex request. Right. And so that's why if we want to get something that we can get, and that's an actual kind of need that's out there right now, I would say the additional basket pickup.
Right. I would certainly agree with you. So just to follow up on that, is there any way as a lower level request to see if there's a study that could be done? Is there data that can be accumulated where there's a high intensity of garbage in particular areas that might need an extra pickup? Could that be a lower level request somewhere?
Mm.
The answer is, from my perspective, yes, but that's up to the task force.
Right.
okay, so the other 2, so Alan, are you going to finesse the language on that, I guess, and make it number 3 with the with Jesse's suggestion of the
It's just
extra?
moving up another one, which is a basket thing.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm
Christine?
finding
It's
it.
just moving up another line, which is the basket thing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so remove, no, that's the bus stop stuff. Sorry, hold on.
All right, while he's doing that,
Don't touch
There we
my
go.
bus stuff.
It's increased DNSY funding for corner basket pickup in particular.
Right.
Please say particular.
Yeah,
For another truck during the 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. shift.
so that would be number 3.
Yeah. And Eric Botcher has identified the basket pickup as one of his top issues.
So Jesse though,
Wanna
and
support.
Alan, I know the committee said that residential trash pickup was the top priority. and not corner, but which is fine, but I'm saying how would we massage, like, and it's two very distinct, right? Requests. One is residential or no, Jesse, is it?
Yeah, no, it's a big request. We're saying that this was, I think you leave the other one where it is at,
Mhm.
and you want to reword it so it maybe just functions better. But I think you leave the residential where it's at, because that's where it fell out in the grand scheme of things. And we, as the task force, have decided that we're escalating the other request to number 3.
And additional basket pickup may also relieve residential garbage, as residents do use the baskets as their private trash
So
cans,
that sounds good.
right?
That's
I
illegal.
do just want to acknowledge that, and you just mentioned Eric Botcher in his most recent newsletter, where, by the way, Jesse is also recognized. So if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. But he notes that sanitation complaints, 311 complaints for overflowing baskets are down 55%. So he's assigning that to, I don't know if it's specific to our district, or his district, but it does seem to be suggesting that. And so that's both good news, but I don't know how that might impact. Like, does the data show that the complaints are still high, I guess, is sort of what I'm asking.
Well, they've probably been reduced from during the pandemic, which everything was overflowing. So
Well, Katie Savage has her hands
return
up.
back,
I know, Dolores, I'm just, let me,
Sorry.
go ahead, Alan.
So it's a good PR statement, so to speak. But if you're comparing it to what it was 2 years ago, going back to what it was.
It was from this time last year, but I hear you.
A win is a win. I mean, it's terrific. I mean, people feel good about it. Why not?
Well, 55, I mean, you still have 45 left.
There are also two other,
There's always room for improvement.
two other sanitation notes. I think big asks, one was the organics, because that was moved over. That's also big. And then there's a few other and syringe collection. I didn't realize, but we are the second biggest 311 calls in the whole city for syringe collection. And as Dolores said, Jesse, I don't know if this is a time Katie is a public member of, and this might be of our CB4, and this is kind of her wheelhouse, or do we want to wait, or what would you suggest as far as point of?
I'm fine with bringing Katie over in a second. I'll just say, like, I think there's plenty of room. I just don't want us to get caught up with making one sanitation request too much overnight. Like, we can fill the top 10 of expense with sanitation if we want to, I mean, that's really what we can do if we want to do that. So I'm giving it and Katie access to speak now.
Great, thank you.
Hello.
Hey, Katie.
So just real quick on sanitation stuff. I would say anecdotally, I have noticed that the bins in Hell's Kitchen are overflowing a little bit more frequently lately. I don't know if that's just, because the weather is still kind of warm and there's still people outside. So I definitely think basket pickup is important. And though we have noted a 55% decrease in the corner basket complaints to 311, I think a lot of people may have stopped putting in complaints, and that's not that the issue is gone, but people have stopped complaining about the issue. In regards to the additional residential pickup, I get why that's important, but as Jesse said, like, mechanically, the way DSNY works, we already have more pickups than any other borough except parts of Brooklyn. Most of the city only gets 2-day-a-week trash, and we get 3-day-a-week trash. I think what could help would be seeing if they could split trash and recycling, because currently those happen on the same days. So you have even more bags out. If there's a dedicated recycling day that's not coupled with a trash day, that will reduce the amount of bags. And then in regards to syringes, as Leslie said, there was an article, I think it was in Gothamist, where they floated an idea of a syringe buyback program similar to the bottle bill. And that's where it was mentioned. After, I believe it was like Washington Heights area was #1 for 311 reports. Hell's Kitchen came in #2. I myself personally have reported 56 loose syringes on the sidewalk just this year. And that's just, I don't go out looking for them. That's just what I see as I'm walking around the streets or doing my cleanups. The syringe collection unit, it's part of the environmental police, which to my knowledge is only like 5 or 6 people citywide. They're the only people within DSNY that are officially authorized to collect syringes. So it could be, I don't know if you can ask about, for them to study a rule change or something on how they respond to syringes if it's a quantity below 5, or whether or not, they need to, because this is what makes it very difficult for them to be quickly acted upon. So, I mean, and I know, especially down by the Canoe and other areas, syringes on the street are a big issue. And if, that's the wheelhouse of DSNY, it would be great if they could create maybe some type of task force or do sweeps specifically in our district because we have a high incidence. I think that covers all the sanitation stuff.
Thank you, Katie. And you know what we do from our ACES meeting last night, there is a request, which we can prioritize or not, for staffing for the syringe collection unit. I'll leave it to Alan to kind of go through that. But thank you, Katie.
No
So
problem.
does it make, would it make sense to take the section which is asking for more pickup and transform that a little bit, massage that into more pickup of syringe?
Well, no, the syringe
Can I-
collection unit is a separate ask.
Mhm.
It's the environmental police, so that is a total separate ask. It could be right below it or a few below it, but it's a,
Not DSNY?
It's DSNY, but it's a different division.
yeah, it is DSNY, but it's a different,
When, like, let's just say if a pickup truck, a DSNY basket pickup truck notices that they have a syringe in their truck, they literally have to stop and call the
No,
environmental.
I get it,
Okay.
Jesse. What I understood is that, and I think Katie is right. We have the highest possible pickup of residential, so that ask is not going to go anywhere. And I'm suggesting not the basket, the residential trash.
put down,
Huh?
lower down.
Lower down.
Yes, we got it.
Right.
I think
So what
that's
I'm
correct.
saying is that line should be repurposed for the
Syringe.
syringe. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't we do, the staffing there is there right below it. I think Jesse and Alan we're gonna massage the language on the corner basket, right, Jesse?
Well, the cornerback, I mean, unless someone tells me it needs massaging, I think it's fine.
Okay,
It's not clear what we're asking. And then you're saying, right, you want after that, the syringe.
is that right, Christine? Is that what you're
Well,
suggesting?
your call. I'm just suggesting to put it to take that. But yeah, I mean,
Top.
people,
Guys, does anyone have a problem with that?
No,
To
I
have-
agree. The residential, I don't think that we'll get that. So that should be
Yeah.
lower. We do need the syringes higher, but I apologize. I just wanted to double check. So we have as our top the housing, the homeless services. We have after that the NYPD ask. Can you remind me, please, what we decided was 3? Is 3 going to be on
That's the
basket
DSNY.
pickup? Okay,
Three is the corner basket.
Yep.
And then right now, tentatively 4 is the syringe.
I
do have to
think
make
that
a-
makes sense.
I
What
mean,
it-
when we talked
their
about quality
existing-
of life, this is all quality of life, right?
Is
Is there
syringe, let me throw
existing-
this out there, is syringe more important to this committee or more a priority, I should say, than organics?
I
Look,
would be, I only want to flag that with syringes is such a hot topic and cause for concern. The board expressly rejected a syringe drop-off site. So how are we going to sort of justify rejection of a drop-off site and at the same time demand greater pickup for illegal disposal.
So Jeffrey, the letter.
Well, for clarity,
Yeah, go ahead. Maria.
for clarity, it wasn't a Dropbox itself, it was the location. That was the issue.
Yes.
I don't know if you recall that.
Yeah.
It was
You're right. It was
right
also my
where,
understanding that was a pretty hot area for
Yeah.
why it was being proposed for there too. So it's.
But the suggestion in the letter was a specific request to find ways to think about how to use existing resources for safe disposal of syringes. Again, it wasn't a rejection outright saying that, well, we want to still keep them on the ground. It was about that location and a concern by the community that lives in that area that strongly was concerned about the actual box itself would be an attractor to the area and not about cleaning up the syringes.
also Katie spoke at that meeting and she provided suggestions, which I put into the letter.
So your question, Leslie, on organics,
I'm just throwing out the other DSNY ask was organics, and I think there might be one or two more, but those are as far as quality of life / trash / that type of thing. What would this committee prefer?
Full
The
disclosure,
organic or the?
yeah, I'm a master composter, but I do think that considering the concerns that the community has raised, that that's a wish list more than a priority that is responding to the sanitation issues. Again, I say that being a person who believes very strongly in composting, and I know, Jeffrey, you feel very strongly about composting too, but I do think it needs to be moved lower down.
And what's easier to get at this point from the city?
Yeah,
Syringe
that's what we were
pickup
talking
or
about, strategy.
organics.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm concerned that the ask is pick up syringes off the street because that's the only place people can throw them. But you go into a bathroom at a lot of restaurants, the libraries, all over the place, like you can drop a syringe off. That's safe disposal. If you have diabetes, you might need safe disposal. So I think that we are mixing a drug crisis with a sanitation need, unfortunately. And how do we address that here?
Well, Jeffrey, I think there are two steps, right? The first step is say people shouldn't have to deal with syringe all over the sidewalk, right?
Correct.
That's the basic level. And then there should be another program saying, okay, how do we get ubiquitous, the disposition of syringe? And right now it looks like people are saying, well, let's put, syringe receptacle in one or two places. And this doesn't seem to be a well thought out protocol across the board. So I think maybe what we should do in our request is to say, please pick up the syringe and develop an all-encompassing program to dispose of the syringe everywhere in the city, just not in, from time to time. So that this is maybe the basket should be separated in two parts, one which is for the syringe and another one for everything else. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that thing, right?
Yeah,
I agree, Christine. The suggestion to think about the actual DSNY ask is to remove the trash itself in a safe way, but also allocate some of that resource to determine the most appropriate way for us to reduce overall. And that could be partnership with other agencies, that could be creative, but we don't need to be prescriptive about that. What we're identifying is the trash issue.
And they could partner with the health department where they partner with them for the rats, and they could have a program partner with them on how do we do that. If there is a place where there is a high concentration, what else needs to be done about that, right?
Yeah.
Have we spent enough, this all sounds right, but this is also like a medical issue, as Jeffrey was saying, and just have we spent enough time really knowing what we're proposing? Like, what is the appropriate disposal, Jesse, it looks like you're shaking your head. But like,
don't-
I think there's a lot we don't know. And I think this is a really worthy topic, not just frankly for this community board, but for so many people are increasingly experiencing health related things which require them to use disposable needles. I don't know that we have the answer.
I think, Jessica, that's exactly right. This isn't necessarily this is a very, very, actually probably one of our most narrow asks on both of these lists. It's very specific. It's just extra staffing for the syringe collection unit, which is the environmental police, which is lowered from pre-COVID. It was actually very, very effective. And then they slashed that.
And which committee would take that up? I mean, as far as looking at the whole, how to dispose of syringe, is that HHNS?
I would think so.
Yeah, because I think
I would think so too.
it would be incumbent on us to invite health department, doctor, blah, blah, and say, okay, what's the best practice? How do we?
Also looking, I mean, we don't have to do this, but looking at other cities, like this is not a uniquely, like, trash is uniquely a New York issue insofar as we have such density and we have to move our trash, but like safe disposal is not, yes, we have density, but it's also, there's a lot to learn from other people who have tackled this issue.
Yeah. So let's move forward as far as I think, Jeffrey, is that okay? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think just as long as, as always, thing this board does is address an immediate issue and then put a policy discussion into effect. And provided we do that, I think that this lines up with how we operate.
Okay, sounds good. So Jesse, I think people feel comfortable with is that right? The syringe collection unit right after that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Corner back, okay.
The syringe collection unit after the basket pickup, the additional.
Corner basket,
Yes.
correct.
Okay. Do we want to do organics after that?
I think
I
organic
think a little lower.
lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think let's see what else is.
Then we can go back to the number ones.
I want to just flag that every ask that has any semblance of environmental consideration continues to be put down. So we made a statement last year that green should be considered broadly. And we're reducing those at every cost this evening. So that's just an observation.
So do we want to keep organics? I mean,
I would prefer to keep organics up there, just from
Jeffrey,
a sort of environmental standpoint, and the fact that I think we need to keep it in the public dialogue and quite forward. But I'm open to.
Jeffrey, I agree with you wholeheartedly that it needs to still be in there. I do think it's only about moving it lower, not to say it's less important, but to recognize what people are really concerned about right now. And again, when we get to a better place, we don't have, we have the luxury of being able to move us more to the perfect union. And I think we're seeing this also not just in the United States, we're seeing this in Europe as they have an energy crunch, and suddenly the concerns about having to reduce and be more green are out the window as they face being.
So Dolores, let me pose this question then to you. What do you think should be above organics then that's on the list?
For WPE or
No,
just general?
No, in general.
So where do we last look? We were still the number ones, right?
But can we just go down the number ones and twos?
Yeah, we were still the number ones.
Because I think it's gonna be really difficult to be having this, can get a sense of where we are. So this is what.
I think this trends could be after the sanitation discussion we had.
But Jesse, the only thing is that organics isn't in here because it was moved over. That's the only thing. That's why it's not on this list as a 1, 2, 3, or 4. So.
Okay, so
it's a little bit of a
I guess then I think, and then the question that's WPE's question. Where do you want it on your list right now?
Right.
So if you want to trade out your 1 for what you have right now, which is park staff.
Yeah.
You want to put in the
I
organics.
would think organics would be our 1, moving it over, but I'm going to go for Jeffrey and Lowell on their comments on that.
I would leave park, I would rather the park staff hire more, I mean, I understand Jeffrey's argument about our need to stay environmental here, but realistically, you got more kids using parks than you have people recycling organics right now. And I know the counter to that is if we do this, we'll have more people recycling organics, but I'd rather put the money into park staff.
So then do we want to make it the number 2, which is park enforcement patrol?
What's your question?
Let's just, without going back and forth about which one is more important about park staff or organics, the second WPE expense request.
Yeah.
Park enforcement patrol provides a uniform presence, basically more PEP officers, right? So would you like to push that one down and make your second WPE the organics?
I mean, as a WPE co-chair, again, I would ask Jeffrey and Lowell to chime in. I would feel comfortable with that only because it's 2 separate agencies. Jeffrey, do you think that organic should be the go after?
I'm fine with park staff being above organics.
Right, but then organics, or then there's the third, which is enforcement staff, the PEP officers, patrol, like the parks enforcement.
I don't know. I don't have the issues with PEP that some folks do, so I would put in organics before PEP.
I'm willing to compromise on that.
Okay.
Me too.
To do park staff, then organics, then PEP officers.
Great.
Yep.
There you go, Jesse.
There we go.
Okay, so let's keep going. So we have, I guess that now, so our first, let's go now to the first trans, the first WPE, the first clue. So we have first in trans is to fix the dangerous intersections.
Yeah. And that would go after the top 3 or whatever you want.
But that's not, I'm sorry, that's not capital, Christine, that's expense.
Yeah. This is paint and signals.
Okay, and then, so where does that go as far as in relation to the park staff? And then
But let's keep in mind again that each agency has their own list, right, Jesse?
Yep.
So we don't have to be too
right, but like
too picky about that, you know? So whatever makes you happy.
So my thought is that, again, we start with the homeless services, we have the NYPD, we have the trash pickup, but the dangerous intersections, are a problem. We are seeing more conflict, and it's not just car and pedestrian, it's also bicycles. And I think that the signage, the painting is important. I think that needs to be right after, right after the trash pickup. And then we go to.
No, it's syringe pickup is after.
Excuse me,
trash.
syringe pickup. Right, and then the transportation issue, and then the parks issue. I mean, that's what, to me, is responding again to those priorities that were identified by the community.
I agree.
Excellent.
All right.
Christine, just for clarification, this is not like for the bikes on sidewalks and all that, like that, and for where is that? Because that was a priority too. Or is this part of that?
Bikes
Or-
on sidewalk is going to be in
Like
your
enforcement.
safety section, where we talked about the safety and the cops.
Yes, this is to DOT. This is not to.
This is DOT. This is not
Gotcha.
NYPD.
So are we?
If you want to add that in the NYPD, I'm fine with that.
So are we comfortable with the WP park staff being number 5 after the dangerous intersections?
Yeah.
Not hearing any no's, so okay. So the next 2 land use are basically the same thing, so we can just combine them. Clue and Clinton House Kitchen Land Use had the same thing as their number one.
Yeah,
I think we should put clue before the transportation because that was one of the three top, right? Affordable housing.
well, yeah. Oh, well, also, don't forget, guys, there's ACEs for the bilingual educators, which is
No,
a,
I mean, back
I don't
into the
wanna-
top, back to the top three. Wasn't that safety, affordable
affordable
housing,
housing.
and then quality of life / sanitation? So up there in the first five, we didn't have any affordable housing stuff.
Right, but I think that's reflected in our, very heavily in our capital. ask,
Okay, all right.
I think, I mean, that's just,
I'm good with that.
All right. Are we good?
Alan? Do you want to talk, Alan, do you want to talk about the ACEs number one or?
Well, I would certainly want to see the enhancement for bilingual education above expand funding for staff to expedite technology upgrades. I don't think that should be an ongoing process in any agency. I don't think we should really have to push them to update their own technology. So I would certainly go school staffing in front of that. And however you want to deal with the clue request is fine, but it's certainly not above school.
I did this.
Anybody disagree with that?
That's fine.
Jessica, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I've lost track here. So that becomes,
After the,
yeah, that becomes 6.
right.
And then the clue, and that becomes 7. And that's duplicate, so that's 7. Okay. Moving on to number 2s.
So this is the twos are the sidewalk study, the PEPs, which we talked about, which is the park. That, by the way, is a parks ask as well. They see that as their hard need, along with the staffing we already put. And then this is a clue, reduce case backlog for landmarking. I mean, does anyone have any thoughts on those?
No.
No? Okay, then if that is the case, and may I suggest in that order, the sidewalk study, the parks enforcement?
I have,
Jeffrey, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think, yeah, though Clue hasn't been on the list much, and they're different agencies. I was gonna say, put the Hell's Kitchen the special district enforcement officer above the landmarks.
I don't think we got, are we at that?
Yes, we're 2s.
Yeah.
Leslie, what number does PEP end up at then?
PEP goes right underneath it, unless, I'm just saying the sidewalk study.
I thought I heard you moving PEP.
PEP moved to, yes, PEP moved to will be the third.
The third WPE. You're talking about
No,
within
I
the
understand it's the third WP, but where does it end up overall?
We haven't got there yet, Lowell.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Lo, go ahead. What we actually that's where.
No,
that's
I
what-
thought I heard you moving PEP down, Leslie, and that's why I chimed in.
Well, no, down below trans, unless you think it should be over the side, above the sidewalk study.
Yeah, I'll make an argument for the PEP police, but I know Christine will counter that, so.
Christine, are you okay with having the PEP police? I mean, not PEP police, the more.
Well,
park
I'd like
staff?
to have both. I'd like to have both. You know, this is
Wouldn't we all?
don't we all, right? If we could
Yep.
get, that's fine. If you want to move it up, that's fine.
Thank you.
Right, so I'm sorry. So
So the first of the number twos is the PEP.
Okay.
And then the trans, we're just flip-flopping that.
And then, okay, but what about curbside organics? So that's above PEP?
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Curbside what?
Curbside organics is above, curbside organics is the first after the number ones, right? Wait, I'm confused now, 'cause
Okay,
I
so
don't have it on my list.
So, okay, but so then, so then it's curbside organics, PEP, and then the sidewalk study.
Correct.
Okay, and then now we have clue. The combined, we have the clue for the LPC backlog. We have the funding for DOB inspectors that is supported by 3 committees.
I actually would I would actually flip those. But that would be a Jessica.
Yeah, I mean, just not as a representative of Clue, but just if multiple committees are advocating for it, I think it does, I do think it increases its weight. And also we think both are very important.
I agree, it should be flipped only because, again, we've added that additional section in our affordable housing plan that addressed specifically the loss of a good number of our affordable stock because this problem has been solved.
When we lose buildings because of demolition, we lose tenants.
Yes.
When it's like, not to be a landmark, it's over it's a historical and like building scar, not a displacement of a human.
Yep.
All right, well, so then we also then have the HHHS request and the ACES request.
Which
ACES
one?
for after school, and HHHS, which is the for the
Placement.
yeah.
I think my gut
This is-
tells me this one should move up.
Well, Maria, this is one of the ones that you were telling me that you and Sabrina were doing research
Some
on.
research on. Yeah, this is the one for the Affordable Housing New York that I also sent the to change the language a little bit. So we were looking and we are not finding that information. I would say,
I'm sorry, Maria, I'm just
Go ahead.
looking now. And just because the housing will be on the capital one, so I have an item here. It's for construction of residential building and building system and division of property, disposition of finance, including the Affordable Neighborhoods Cooperative Program citywide, of a capital of 82,839,139. So about almost 100 billion. I have it here. So it's just, again, it's a very broad what I can find of like if this will be into our community or into our community board, into our district. But yeah, it is funded.
But it sounded
Yeah,
like
but
what you read was capital, though.
Yeah, but
yeah, that's the only problem.
Yeah, it seems to me that we are receiving more migrants. We have more needs, right? And you can't find what is coming our way. And this paragraph should say that. You should say, with all the additional needs, first of all, we can't find where you have spent that money in our district, and we need more need. That's it.
I think that sounds good, Christine. I think that's what we have to do. And I think that when expanding the Affordable Housing New York program needs to be moved up in expense.
So I have a question. So the vouchers, they come from the expense part, right? But based on what I'm looking here, it's like vouchers are divided in 3 categories: HIV, which is HACA for kids. And am I missing another one? Like I don't see vouchers for other people than in those categories. Or I mean, I know Section 8, but that's different, right?
Yeah, I think the vouchers, maybe I'm mistaken, but my understanding, maybe Dolores might know better, but I think they come from, it's this, I'm thinking
okay,
HPD,
so
but I don't really know. I say we leave it.
Well, again, I think, in terms of exactly what the programs are, we can identify in this request that we still have a need. And I think as Christine articulated, that
Yeah.
we're adding the additional need, maybe that maybe the immigrant population doesn't get vouchers. But again, what we need to solve for
Right.
is that we have an influx of folks that need housing, that are being given temporary housing, and a lot of it is in our district.
Right.
So-
But I would take the voucher out until we don't know more, because it seems like there's only two categories that goes into the vouchers, for kids and for HIV folks.
Perhaps we just leave it in
Let's see.
as an example of, have it as an example, say, to solve for it in ways you already have established, for example, your voucher program, or in additional ways that you might develop.
my question is whether we're leaving it where it is, or do you want to move it up into the priorities of number 2s? Do you want to move it into the top 10?
Yes.
Yes, I think we need to move it into the top 10.
Does
Affordable
anybody have a
housing.
problem with me making it the number 8 and shifting everything down?
That's good.
That's good.
All right.
And I think the language we add there is recognizing this was funded last year, the need is still there, blah, 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 blah. And
Thank
articulate the new needs.
Great, thank you, guys. Are you good, Jesse?
I think it should
Gonna-
be. I screwed something
Okay.
up. I'll figure it out later.
Oh,
Oh, right, because
Emergency housing vouchers. So yeah, so they maybe can be in that category too, because it would be an emergency, the asylum seekers. So yeah, vouchers, it's okay to leave that language.
okay.
all right, so then we have ACEs.
Yeah, that would be the last number 2, Jesse.
All right, so that's the,
We could just stick that on the end.
yep.
Okay,
I mean, and if we agree with that.
right. I mean, that's
I
something.
mean, I will say that the discussion was about, like, this is being specifically about serving that new population of families with children who don't have the resources right now to, go to enter all the after-school programs, and whose parents are, obviously under immense amount of stress being, in temporary shelter. But I will leave it at that. If we're okay with it being number 13, we can move on.
Well, again, it'll be one of the top ones to DOE.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not. All right, moving on.
Okay. So then if we go to our 3s, in no particular order, the sidewalk extensions,
For safety purpose.
right. This is other right. It says install 4 sidewalk extensions.
Yeah.
For the study. Playground associates, this is kids' jobs, and then for parks, programming. And then clue is the inspectors to investigate. And I'm sorry, my thing keeps kind of, increase emergency repair program. And then the last 2 is the NYCHA elevators, Maria,
Yes.
for maintenance. And
Can
then
you hear me?
Yes, I can. And then this is where the ACEs was the residential trash pickup, which I think is off the board, or is at least.
Mhm.
Well, we decided to leave it where it was. We jumped over it to put up the
Gotcha.
best of.
But didn't we change it?
I
Didn't
thought
we?
I thought we massaged that language or
Mhm.
changed it, or
I
no?
mean, Alan, you
Yeah.
want to send me massage language?
Massage, yes.
All right, send me massage language. All right, but we're leaving it as number where it is right now, unless someone tells me different.
Okay.
All right, so are we?
Can we prioritize the housing, the elevators above the 2
Yeah.
land use?
Yes.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Above the land use?
Above the DOB and HPD requests.
Okay, and above parks? Are we
Well,
above
you know,
parks?
My gut says to move it above parks, but I know that we have a little bit of a sensitivity that our WPE items keep getting pushed down.
In the midst of a crisis, I'm willing to concede a little bit to Loris.
The drugs are kicking in.
Is being very conciliatory.
The drugs are kicking in.
And the final,
I'm
and the
confused.
Well, guys, this has to do, the parks thing, Lowell, hold on. The parks thing has to do with not necessarily the parks, but with youth programming and jobs.
Even more reason to move housing above it.
Jobs for
I understand.
Also, is this program really we're only asking for $12,500?
this is a direct quote from Steve Simon and Parks.
Let's do a fundraiser.
Yeah, totally.
We could probably
It's
raise that.
8:57. We're dying in here.
we got more money for our coat drive than this, than that.
Yes, seriously.
I think that's only one of the programs there. But again, I mean, Leslie, this is not taking away anything because
No, I don't, I have no, whatever, either way it goes. It's
Okay.
just it's not a park, it's not necessarily parks. It's more of a youth program for the, underserved.
I have a question on the night shop. I mean, do we have a chance of getting that? We have been asking for. Is it? Are they making any progress on this project?
Well,
But this was
no,
well, because Bert unfortunately is not here. Who was had the main insight into this, which is this. There's this continual way of, again, NYCHA's playing this chicken and egg thing where they're saying, well, we don't have the staff, you don't have the trained staff maintenance people to fix the elevators and blah 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 blah. And when the elevators are, and then like, oh, the money's not there for the elevators to be broken, to fix the elevators. And so like that's why we have both the elevator from the Harborview project in Capitol and the staffing in this section.
I see.
I think if we can't, they're combined and we have to link them.
But from all the years that we have requested that, at least I remember 5 years.
The answer is always the same answer. You're going to have the same what's written right there.
Okay.
Sufficient federal and state funds.
So when we're all saying it should be moved up, maybe we should take that with a grain of salt, right?
A bag of salt.
A bag of salt. So we don't have to get totally excited. I mean, I was ready to move it up all the way, but if they are never going to give it to us, then it's.
Christine, your point is a good point, and I think that again, it'll still be one of the top priorities for NYCHA. So let's go ahead and concede that, and leave the WPE where it is.
Yeah.
So my question then is, because that was the starting point, what is number 14? Is the most important thing in the third tranche either the sidewalk extensions, the playground associates, the DOB, the HPD, or the NYCHA elevators?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty important because first of all, Jesse, as you know, we paid for it.
Yes.
Yes, right. And then there is a good chance for getting it. So I'm hearing from DOT, we should have already gotten it. So, and third, it's for safety reason. So for these three reasons, I would keep it up, but I'm open.
I agree with Christine.
I have a question. It's for something new that Triple H. Okay.
Can we just focus on whether we want to make transportation's request number 14 the next one, the priority one? Does anybody have any issue with that?
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
So then are we okay with the way the rest of this falls out?
What falls out?
The next one being the playground associates, the DOB inspectors.
Yeah,
Yep, we're staying in the order.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to hear.
Can I come?
Yeah,
Did I
sorry,
get a chance now?
sorry, Maria. I apologize. I just wanted to.
no, Maria, you don't get a chance.
Had to walk away from the computer, Jesse. All your fault.
Understand.
All right, so at HHS, we put a new item into our, we have a new request, which is a tenant organizer and an attorney for housing conservation coordinators. And well, what I originally wrote was that was going to be our number 2 expense, but seeing how things are going, obviously that can't be. And that would probably be our 1, 2,
That's not, I mean,
3.
Maria, I'll check my email, but I swear that's not what you sent me. Down here.
Yeah, I did. I wrote new.
You
Remember
wrote
that
new,
the-
but it wasn't
When we
enough
say
to do.
new, I thought the idea was to prioritize things that we have gotten voted by the board.
It
No,
was
It
voted.
hasn't voted. It's
Oh,
just
it was?
Yes, but it
Yeah.
wasn't on the list last year. And so
Oh,
we identified
That's why I
in
said
in
it's
the
new.
Got
committee,
it.
we identified in the committee is that we were going to move down
Right.
the homeless services because it said funding. And then
Right.
we would move to number 2, the specific, is it the subsidy one? I apologize because I don't have the language in front of me, Maria. Is it the
So
subsidy, Hartley?
I have it in front of me. We were
Thank you.
moving what we wanted to do, what we
Oh,
talked
here
about
it
doing
is. Number
Was-
5.
was moving street outreach down and expanding affordable housing New York down. Number 1 was going to be elevators. Number 2 was going to be tenant organizer and the attorney at HCC.
Oh, for HCC, yeah.
Okay, well, right, but you said you weren't sure which one, so I had to pick
Right.
one.
So, and then,
But
so
you-
then we kept it. Right,
Right.
Jesse. Thank you.
So
for
that's why I left it, put it as number 5, because that's what, you gave me 2 choices and I just picked one.
Yeah.
If we are saying you want to make that number, your second request, you're switching that out?
No, I think we still need to have the street outreach for at least for where it is. And we already have expanding affordable housing New York on the list. I think the next thing we need to be asking for after the elevators, at least for our committee, is the tenant organizer. And where that fits in
You're
this
moving that to
list
number
is
4.
up for debate.
You're moving that to number 4 then,
Okay.
right? And you're taking away the HRS request about expanding GED completion programs, job training, and financial literacy. You're moving that to number 5.
So I think continued support, but that was also another question that we had, the homeless prevention and GED stuff. It was possibly going to be continued support or leave it where it was.
Then, okay, but okay, so now let's move on to number 4s, because we're there.
Great. And this, I guess in the same order of the trans, another study, right, on Hudson Boulevard East, park pruning. What's this, Jessica, from Clue? This is the, other than personal services funding.
This is giving the community board budget, right, more money.
It's the
Ah,
raise.
Jesse
It's the
Jesse
raise
knows
for
that one.
Jesse. It's
This
the
is
raise.
the
that
planning
one.
fellow.
We're all in favor for that.
I think we should put that up as the top of the 4s.
No, don't do that.
I think
It's not happening. It's not happening.
oddly, I think the rodent inspection needs to move up in this section. I do think that after that, what Maria just articulated, so for folks that don't know what that is, basically HCC housing coordinators, community coordinators, they need more lawyers. They need more community organizers, as we know that folks are, after the rent freeze was lifted, there is more of a need than ever for folks that may not have had that need prior. So it's a tangible request that we may have an opportunity to get and brought directly to Joe, I think what, last week, Maria, is that right?
Yeah.
How is it related to the rodent enforcement?
It's not related to rodent.
Oh, okay.
I think rodent actually is something that has been broadly an issue that people have articulated. So I think that moves up in the fours, and then the
I
next four would be the housing community coordinators.
Perfect. We'll
They're
tell
not
them.
related. Well, these landlords are rats. Some of
Thank
them,
you.
yes, but they're not related.
I'd like
Thank
to
you,
ask a
Christine. I was wondering the same thing.
I'd like to ask a question of the committee here. I see that we are missing two things that have been in the letters, the bicycle and a car enforcement with NYPD, and the DSNY, the plan for garbage and trash that we just finished, and asking sanitation to study it. So I will send some suggestion to Jesse and Leslie about that. If this is okay with you?
As a request?
Yeah, we're going to put them in the list. I forgot them, but we'll put them low. I mean, I don't know,
Okay, yeah.
number 5 or
Is it within the
just
study
so
for,
that-
you mean the bikes and the,
yeah. I mean, the bike, if everybody, because everybody talked about that a little bit earlier. If you want to put it up, I'm okay with that, the enforcement.
I mean, I think it's been a big thread of conversation this past year, and
So what I'll do is I'll write up the thing and then I'll let you decide where you put it.
oh, don't do
Well,
that.
All right, so let's go back to the fours. So we're just getting out of the 20s, and so I think honestly, after
Yeah,
20,
does.
25, I think we need to-
25, that's it. Then we
That's
go
it.
to
Doesn't
we
matter.
go to dinner.
Yeah, thank you. So we're almost there.
Yeah.
So we've got Dolores has suggested that we make the DOH rodent inspection enforcement the next one, which would be 20.
yep.
Is
And
that
then,
comfortable? Is everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
and we have the funding for permanent upgrades to open streets.
Yeah.
The fund homeowner floodproofing measures. Additional, okay, I'm sorry, the attorney thing was moved. Sanitation enforcement.
Wait, what? No, what?
Leslie, I did suggest that we do the HHHNS new item for housing community
Yes.
coordinators. After.
Yeah, I said that's what we just talked about.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, the
Sorry.
HH that we just talked about.
That was the HCC one, the organizer and the lawyer, right?
Yes.
So we want to
Yeah,
make
about the rent.
21. That's the one after rodents. Then
Before rodents.
you want to make that. You want to make the HCC request before rodents. So that's
Yeah,
20.
because these are people before rodents.
Rodents, and
Yes.
then after that is rodents.
And I actually think I would make an argument to move up the sanitation enforcement
What?
as well.
What? Hold on. We're okay, but
No, you don't need to do that now.
No, that's what they were saying. There's nothing to stop people from all this illegal dumping all over the.
I'm sorry. So
All
after
right.
after rats, we've got. I'm going back to the top of the list. We've got the OTPS funding for community board. We've got. I'm sorry, Maria. Are we saying that the GED program is in continuing support?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
Then and then we've got that's it. So then so then we're good. So hold
Yeah,
on.
now we're on our fives.
Hold on one second. So the shared streets thing is after that, that's 22.
Well, I like I said, I would suggest the DSNY gets pushed up for
You mean the
DSNY.
enforcement? The enforcement line?
Yeah,
Okay.
if that's okay with everyone.
Sure.
I know it's been a big problem, but I don't know. It's like
All right,
what
so
the pie in the
that's-
sky.
No, I think it's a good idea. We're not going to get anywhere if
So
there
the,
is no
the
enforcement.
broom, the one with the mechanical broom one, number 5.
Yeah, that's the language, but yes, it's for sanitation enforcement. I think
Right, but let's be very clear. This is specifically about broom.
Yeah,
about
this is, I think,
not general enforcement. We've had this
No.
over this for a long time last night. So if we're saying that, then I just want to be clear, that's what we're saying. This is about a supervisor being with the truck for the broom
Oh,
to be able to get the cars actually off the side, off the curb.
Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
That's Alan's
Yeah.
favorite subject.
Yeah, but the problem is, it's kind of like mixing two different things. There's a specific need for enforcement on the streets and everything else. And there's a need to get the cars moving. The problem is, from what I notice on my street, an enforcement, how can you're gonna need to add staffing.
Well, that's what we're
for this,
asking
you know what I'm
for.
saying?
We're asking for
And
it.
they really can't do anything if someone leaves their car there or somebody is sitting in their car. They can only hope that they can encourage the people to move. So you're asking someone to do something that they may not be able to do, right? So I think the part about getting the cars off the street is more of an NYPD, it's more of a traffic, it's more of an increase situation in terms of summonses. Instead of 65, you know, but it opens up a whole big thing. You know, I'm fine
So
with
what
asking.
about, so what about I
I'm
put,
fine with asking for more inspectors to, you know, drive with the mechanical trucks down the street, but I don't see that really happening unless you really put, you know, you're talking about four times a week now, right? And can they really staff that up? So can always, you know, if you think if it's worth asking for that, I'm more fine for it. But somehow we have to figure out how to get more enforcement, higher fines, to get the cars to actually move. How about neighborhood permitting in some sense? My experience is most of the cars that stay there, that people walk away from, don't live in the neighborhood. They're willing to take a chance that someone's going to give them a $65
so,
ticket.
but Alan,
Yeah.
what, you have to make a decision. Your line here, is that what you want to ask for or not?
Ask for it.
My recommendation is to ask for it. No, my recommendation is to ask for it, move it lower down, and then Jesse, homework for you in
Right.
district cabinet is to bring a couple of these agencies together to see how they can coordinate solving for the root cause, Alan, which is a coordinated effort around ticketing to actually allow for that expense to be effective. How about that?
Right.
Very
Yeah. Excellent.
All right. So
Are we fine then with the fives as
You
they are?
done 25 yet?
So we're
Yep.
okay. So we're not jumping into that. So we're not jumping.
No. So are we fine with the rest of the way? The fives, the rest of the way it is?
Yes.
I'll shake it out where it makes sense. That's fine. Let's move to fives then.
Yeah, I think we're done with fives.
We're not moving anywhere. We have done 25. We're
We just
done.
did fives.
I vote we leave everything exactly the way it is at this very moment.
Exactly.
If we're
Exactly.
fine with that, then that's fine.
Well, you
Yes.
sound like you're fading. You
I
okay?
am, Alan, I
I
am.
second
yeah.
that.
Oh, there's one thing on 6 you can take out, Jesse. Reinstate curbside organics collection, because that was already taken up above.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so homework assignments, want to recap what we're all doing?
Yes, let's start from the beginning. Please, guys, if you can, if you go back to the statement district needs the introduction, just to update what was funded and that language under your respective categories. Just so we can put a bow on that. I will under my bullet list, I will give the greater detail of the 1, 2, 3 priorities. And get that to you. I think I will also prepare for the conversation on the auxiliary police
Auxiliary station.
specific location. And
Well, let's call it satellite instead of auxiliary. So we don't.
I
mix it with
think
the-
satellite's a better word.
Satellite,
Yes,
Satellite,
we don't
okay.
mix it up with an auxiliary police program.
okay, satellite location.
Mhm.
And what else? I mean, and then, Jesse has what each committee person is going to massage their language
A lot of massages going on. What's going on?
I don't know why I use that for like massaging language. I don't know why.
We're getting close to each other.
Different term.
Jesse?
We just need to vote on this.
Yep.
Alan, just stay away from my arm if
Move
you're.
to
gonna vote
adopt.
on this.
No problem. I know how
We
you
have a
feel. Trust
motion.
me.
Someone needs a
Second.
second.
Guys,
I second. I
Jen
Jeffrey,
seconded.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor of the raise of hands to pass the way it is?
My hand is
Sabrina
up.
and Lowell?
Okay, Lowell gave a hands up and Sabrina said yes.
All right.
I'm a peony.
I think she's peony. Yeah.
On everything?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm peony
oh,
on one
yes.
of them.
Yeah.
Jeffrey,
Works.
you're peony on one.
All right.
No?
You
I think
can-
it's, okay, guys, I think we
Can
can.
I, can I ask a question? Can I ask a
Yes,
question?
go ahead, Alan.
Yeah,
No.
sure.
Last year we had
Oh,
52,
good
last year we had
point.
52 items on the expense sheet. What do we do with the rest of them?
Huh?
Same way they are.
Well, some have to be
Well,
changed. I mean, you know, can
Jesse
can I just
puts
go
it-
in and change whatever I want to change in here?
No, you're
No.
not doing any of that. Don't.
No, we just voted. We just voted that
Jesse's
everything
face.
was
Voted
fine.
Can I exchange what belongs to ACES? Can I exchange it with something else if it doesn't, if it's been funded or if it's, not effective?
But below,
You sent me.
You know what I'm saying?
Everybody's.
Pick that up,
what you sent me
pick that up with
Hold on,
Jesse on the
Jesse's
side.
speaking. Hold on.
Sorry, Jesse.
Last year's, you don't even think about last year's. Last year's stuff is gone.
He already did that,
What
yeah.
you sent me is what we are solely putting in.
Yeah, but we had good stuff. in
Alan,
there.
at the end of the meeting, you're saying, can I change everything?
Yeah, but
No, I don't want to change anything. I didn't know what was going to happen with the rest of it. I thought we were just gonna.
the rest of it is
With the rest of
gone.
these.
No, we're not.
The rest of it is gone.
So we're only gonna have 20 some odd.
No, we're gonna have, we just stopped at 20. We have another, you guys went on to like 15.
Yeah, no, Lowell made a
15
motion, Alan, Lowell made a
That's what I'm
motion to do
saying.
the rest as is, and it was seconded, I believe.
Yeah.
So
We're keeping the
Alan,
order of everything.
Alan, real quickly, what Kit sent earlier today,
Yeah,
that list of both expense and capital, that's
Right.
all gonna be in there.
right.
That's all gonna be in there. But
Okay.
the other
But
stuff,
you can't touch
and you
anything.
didn't vote, that's not, anything that's not on that list from last year is not gonna be in.
All righty.
Point of order.
Yes, Lowell?
Jesse,
Um,
you look
we've
like
already
you are,
voted-
you are jumping out of your.
If
Lowell's
we have
speaking.
already voted on the one order item of business on the agenda, can we move to adjourn?
Yes,
I
Wait,
second
second.
and feel better, Lowell. Oh,
I'm
sorry.
P&E on something. Do I need to, does that matter?
Hey,
or-
just say it. What are you P&E on, Maria?
I'm P&E on the, it's STIs, HIV, because Ryan Health is in there.
All right. Listen, here's
Yeah,
the
Jesse.
hard and fast rule. Please, whoever's P&E on anything, just email me sometime between now and the end of the week what your P&E.
Okay.
All right.
I'm sending a PNE note right now.
Thank you so much.
Listen, we have to go because Jesse's demeanor is turning and
He's
I can
just
see it and I
losing
just
it.
want to just.
Jesse, I hope that Lev gets better. You get some
Yeah, I
sleep.
hope he
Yeah.
gets better. get some
Lowell,
sleep.
I hope
Guys,
that your
thank you
pain
very
goes away.
much. Really, this was a good job.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much,
Thanks,
except for that
everyone.
stuck at the
Good
top of
work,
the capital.
Leslie.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Leslie.
guys. I'll have
All right,
everything
thank you.